Welcome, everybody. It is that time of the year here in Tennessee. We are just going through hives that have pollen. They're booming, they're building up. It's an exciting time of the year. It's Christmas time for beekeepers in Tennessee. Those of you who are up north, it's not that much further away. It's going to be here. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and get this out of the way so we can get to the questions. But I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors who are making the experimental yard happen, because I think it's going to be really important for me. And I think we're all going to learn a lot from it. I'd like to say thank you to Kevin Morrison at J&W Apiaries, who is supplying 52 nucleus colonies to the experimental yard. Big shout out to Kevin. You can find him on my Facebook page. He sells high quality nukes and all kinds of other beekeeping related stuff. Thanks to Premier Foundation, who makes USA made foundation and donated everything we needed for our experimental yard. The foundations are great. Best smelling beeswax I've ever smelled on foundation that I've purchased. And it has more sales than any other foundation I've ever used. So I'm excited about that. Thank you to Appa, who gave us a significant discount to try insulated hives versus non-insulated hives. So half the experimental yard will be insulated. Thank you to Hilco Bee Supply, who supplied all of the wood inside and wood frames for the experimental yard. You can check out Hilco Bee Supply out of Illinois, Hilco, I believe, .com or something like that. You should be able to Google it. Of course, you can look at Appa and Premier as well. Nice people. You don't have to worry about that, big company customer service. You guys can actually get a hold of people at these places. And thanks to Kevin at Hap Bee Acres for donating nucleus colonies that we'll be using to show you how we do the splits and the treatments. And thank you last of all to Good Job Bees out of Hawaii, who makes exotic white Kiave honey. So thank you all for coming in. Let's get to questions. I'm super excited about the time of the year that it is, and I hope you all are too. Hey, Tracy, I think I saw that, and we really appreciate that very much. It really helps us out when people go through our links. Some people hate me for those links. I think I can't be trusted for them. The way I look at it, if I have to go back driving a truck, I stop making videos. It's as simple as that. We really do appreciate you taking that extra time to go through it, though. It means a lot to my family and myself. All right, so we got people from Poland, we got people from Sweden, we got people from Sevierville, which is not too far down the road, Ohio, all right, North Carolina. And I'm excited also because I'm starting to get phone calls again about live meetings here in the South and part of the U.S. I've got 3 scheduled for this year. That's not my conference, so it's exciting to think of the prospect of seeing more beekeepers in person. Also, still doing a lot of Zoom meetings and stuff. I've been very fortunate to be able to still do those, and it's been a lot of fun to do those this year as well. But it's not the same as being in person. Can you add all the links below the video later? Hey, John Tompkins, I will. It might take me a day, but I will get all the links to our sponsors and to all of that kind of stuff. And I appreciate you mentioning that. I need to make sure that happens. And all of our experimental yard videos, there will be links, contact information, and obviously you're going to get to see how it performs in the field. Going to be doing a lot of videos on those this year. I'd say 30 plus. Kamon, what are your thoughts after the Russian bee talk? All right, plain and simple. So you saw me on there, huh? I find that really interesting. I've heard the whole Russian thing for quite a while, and I really like the fact that they don't say our bees are just completely immune to Varroa. Some people are really bad about just throwing that out there. It's more complicated than that. But I do think they are one of the top breeders in the country as far as actually having a strict regimen of this. This is our requirements. This is what we have to have. And if it's not met, then you can't be part of the breeding program. I would love to make the Russian bee from them, not the generic hybrid ones you get in these packages. They're not really Russians. Some people could argue these guys aren't pure either, but I think they're as pure as you can find in the United States. I would love to see them in our experimental yard in the future. and see how they perform. All right. All right, Steve Chubb, you made it on. Did you have weird stuff with queens? I don't get that. But maybe you can elaborate. Nice flag. That is a grand old flag right there, isn't it? Thanks to Don Bearden for giving it to me so I could compete with Ian Stepler. You know, Canadians need to have Canadian flags. We Americans, though, need to make sure we have ours as well. Have you noticed any moisture issues with the Appa hives? I opened mine up and they were soaked inside bees dead. I have not noticed any moisture issues with ours. And we get rain all the time. So rain the last 2 days, stays pretty wet around here. What I do see, and I've seen wet hives in my bee yards of this year, and it's almost always due to weak hives, or maybe if it's getting some underneath the lids if you have migratory lids, or maybe even a hole in the lid if they're not sealed properly. But weak colonies don't get rid of the moisture well. That's my opinion. Big colonies, you've got that huge colony, it's generating all that heat, and it just pushes that moisture to the side and it hits the walls and rolls on down. And people talk about moisture problems. I most of the time think of weak colonies, because if I do see moisture problems, it's always on weak clusters. The big ones, I think they just drink it all up. Honestly, they use that condensation because they have to have something, and it's crazy. I'll see a January day; it'll be 55 degrees here. Sometimes we'll get a 50-degree day, 60-degree day. And the first thing the bees do, they go on out, they take a cleansing flight, and then they find any mud puddles or any ponds that they can, and they just haul water back into the hive. So I think the whole moisture in the hive thing needs to be looked into a lot more, because I think a lot of us are more concerned about it than maybe we ought to be, but also we don't fully understand what's going on, perhaps. I think more and more I'm looking into insulating underneath the lid. I think that's a good thing to prevent that. But the Appa hive shouldn't need that. It should have the upper ventilation. I don't think it has anything to do with the type of hive. I think it has to do with the condition of the bees. All right. All right. So first pollen in Minnesota. All right. I don't think we have any of those pussy willows here, but I hear they produce a ton of pollens. Maybe we do, but I don't notice any around here. Ah, Steve, I lost a lot of queens right up into fall. I hate to hear that. When do you treat for mites? Ah, 2 oxalic acid vapor treatments in winter. I treat them as soon as we pull honey supers in June, and then I'll treat them again in late August to make sure that there's low populations of mites. It's all about keeping them low. If you keep them low, your bees are going to perform at a very high level. You got to stay ahead of those things. That's when I treat, and I use Appa thymol, oxalic acid vapor. I use it in multiple ways. It, oxalic acid really doesn't give you high levels of effectiveness unless you have a brood break of some sort, or you just use it and use it and use it. And the jury is still out, in my opinion, on if you even get a 90+% kill if you do 5 rounds in 21 days. From what I've tested 2 times, it has never gotten me close to 90% in 5 rounds in 21 days. Picked up queens. Okay, that one's scrolled away from me. Picked up queens today from Bob Benny. What a pleasure it was. What a wealth of knowledge he is, and what a personal individual. Yeah, personable individual. Yeah, he's awesome. He is a great guy. Over the years I've kept beekeeping, been beekeeping and kept bees, I have never met someone like Bob. Typically, if they have knowledge that's somewhat up to his level, they're so stuck up, or they're not willing to share anything or help anybody out. And Bob is just such a friendly guy. Ian's that way also. I'm very blessed to have a lot of friends who are more knowledgeable than me. And those are the type of people you want to hang around. You want to hang around the smart people. You don't want to hang around with dumb people. So I'm very fortunate to hang around people that are smarter than I am, that I can learn from and bounce ideas off of, so they can tell me what they think, and their opinion is actually worth something. How can you tell what breed of queens is in the hives in a swarm? You cannot. There is like no way to tell with the naked eye test the difference between an Africanized bee, a Carney, an Italian. There's so much inbreeding, um, and not inbreeding, such diversity and coloration and so many different things. There's just no way you can tell. Do you have opinion on using slatted racks? I think they can help. But again, I have no personal experience. So, take that for what it's worth. I have some really successful beekeeping buddies who use them on every honey production hive, and they say they are awesome. And they keep them on. And there's some people that don't like them. To me, it's just one more thing I have to fool with, but they might be really awesome. But I don't know. I think they're a cool bee tool, and I don't think they're bad. I just think it's kind of a personal preference type of bee tool. Thanks for chatting again. At the conference, Kent talked about dropping 2-day queen cells into mating nukes and using them as finishers. I was reading through my notes and have that much wrote down, but can't. And then it ends. So Lucas Giles, maybe finished up somewhere further down below. Maybe I'm behind on the comments. Remember if I missed something in there. Okay, yeah. I think there's going to be a trick there. Bob, Benny, and I were talking the other night about this. What is the key to making sure we get the development out of the rest of the cell? So in 2 days, most of the, pretty much the royal jelly, it's filled all the way up to the top of the cup. So there's plenty of royal jelly in there, but you want to make sure that there's plenty of, a nice big cell, plenty of room for development. We don't want a small queen because she's limited to a small little cell. It's too small for her. There's a lot of opinions on this, but I've never done a 2-day cell. Neither has Bob, and that's why I'm excited he's doing it as well. We're going to be able to compare what the other one's seen. I think it's going to take it can't be a weak mating nuke. It's going to have to be a mating nuke that's got a decent bit of nurse bees and a decent bit of just a population, because you definitely want that taken care of. And what's the percentage on these? Kent runs a very interesting operation, and I like Kent a lot. I just know that I do things very differently, and Bob does things very differently from him. So what works, what Kent is okay with may not be something that I'm cool with or Bob's thinks is good enough. So we'll just have to see how that works. But yeah, basically you're supposed to stick them in a mating nuke that's in decent shape, and they're supposed to finish it out. And I'm hoping that we can figure that out and it'll work good, because I think it'd be very helpful for bee clubs and individuals. We've got to get more people raising their own queens. I think folks would see a big difference. What would you recommend to treat mites on the small scale? Oxalic acid vapor is, I think, an important tool that at times can be very useful. That and Hopguard right now are my go-to natural products. I was using Apavar, the synthetic, but it's not working very good. More and more people are having problems with it, and I would not recommend that anymore. I actually have a video that I need to take down. It's on how to apply it, but I'm going to take it down because I don't want people to start using that and then be like, it didn't kill my mites. And it's frustrating because it used to work a lot better. Quality control issues, super frustrating. Speaking of treatments and quality control, so you all saw the video probably where I was talking about oxalic acid vapor. The EPA has said they're cool with the more dosage and treating with honey supers. Of course, they had to go through like the USDA, and then the label had to be changed on the legal product, which apparently the only legal product now is Apaboxol, or however you pronounce that stuff. And I just I have to be careful with this, but it really drives me nuts that that's the only product on the market. That's not capitalism, that's a monopoly. And it's 97% or 96 point something oxalic acid with, it's 97%. And there's 3% inert ingredients, whatever that is. But you can order 99.7% pure oxalic acid that has 0.3% something ingredients, but it's okay for you to use in your soap and all that stuff. And oh, by the way, the stuff from Man Lake is just, like 14 times the price. Where's the balance here? Of course, they're going to say, well, it cost a lot to get the label and the EPA and everybody on board. Well, another example of the government blowing and making things expensive. Anyways, whatever your opinions are on that, mine are. I'm not going to use it during my honey supers are on anyways. But if you have some Appa bioxyl or however it's pronounced, you can't use what you have, even if you've got 50 pounds of it. And if it doesn't have the label on there, even though it's the same product, you are legally not allowed to use that to treat your honey supers. But you can the new stuff. Make sure you buy some more. All right, let's get on to bee questions. Kamon, can you use yogurt instead of royal jelly for doing wet grafting? I've heard people say that you can. I've never tried it. That would make a cool video, though. I'll try that out if I can find the time this year. Yeah, there's no way they're going to legalize the off-shelf oxalic acid, even if it was healthy for you and the purest thing on planet Earth, and actually something that would make you healthier, because there's no money in it. That's why. And it's always that. Now, hey, I'm okay with people making money. I really don't mind that places make money, but when you're jacking up the price 14 times and the product isn't even as pure as the other stuff, that seems a little crooked to me, like just a lot. And I don't like it. They've taken too long. All these issues that we have with Varroa mites, they should have figured more of this stuff out. I know it's not easy, but come on. They're not trying very hard, I feel. There's too much red tape. We need help, and they're not giving it to us. And then when they do give it to us, they pull it right out of our pocketbooks. Nice. All right. What do you think about Hopguard 3? I have never used it. Hopguard 1 and Hopguard 2 obviously weren't good enough, or they wouldn't have made Hopguard 3. I'm thinking about trying that out this year on a couple colonies, and we shall see. I'm not holding my breath on it. Can bees suffocate in the winter if snow plugs the front bottom entrance and there's no top ventilation? If there's no air getting in there, they absolutely can suffocate in wintertime. And they can suffocate really fast and overheat in summertime. I know that from experience. And that's one of the reasons, I think, why top ventilation originally was used back in the old bee books, is in areas that got a lot of snow. You'd have that upper ventilation, and the heat rising. Even if the snow got up to that upper ventilation, usually the heat from the bees would keep that melted away. Let's see. How do your colonies do this year? I had 7 colonies and 3 die over the winter. This is the best year we've ever had as far as overwintering success, the strength of colonies coming out of winter. I've had so many great videos I wish I could have filmed, but Laurel has been really busy with stuff the last week or so. And we both have been really busy, but she hasn't been in the bee yards. I've been going through our bee yards by myself, and I can't remember how many times I'm like, oh, this would be the perfect video. But anyways, what we're going to get some more. Tomorrow's video is going to be on a colony that really needed a hive reversal, what we're looking for when we do that. This colony just absolutely had to have a hive body reversal. We also have another colony that needed some attention immediately. This prevents swarming, helps the colonies get stronger, ready for the honey flow. Tomorrow's video should be pretty cool. And so if you're interested in that, it'll be up probably at 6 a.m. in the morning once I get that edited. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Big Pharma loves being in our bee yards. They just don't like helping us out when we really need it. Apivar strips. Yeah, I don't trust them anymore. There's too many guys, including myself, who are using them on hundreds, and some guys using them on thousands of colonies, and they're not knocking back mites anymore like they're supposed to. And there are people who are testing the strips. The concentration is not there. We have got to stop paying money on products like that aren't doing their job. It's maddening is what it is. We pay our money. The product needs to do what it says it will. But in beekeeping, there's not a lot of competition, lots of monopolies. I'm telling you right now, if somebody you know or if you can get a labeled oxalic acid product that is legal to use, I will recommend it. We need competition in that market. You could still make 5 times what the stuff is online and still make money, and just not charge 14 times and undercut the competition. I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot to that stuff. Probably not worth it, but I'm just waiting for somebody else. Yeah, Ian videos his own, but he's used to that, Shauna. I'm spoiled, and it just takes so much time when you have to do it by yourself and you can't get the shots. I really am spoiled though. And I just hate taking that much time to set up a camera and get the shots and all that kind of stuff when I can just wait to get Laurel and then it'll be 3 times better. But yeah, I didn't lose many colonies this year. I'm really excited. If we can just get an average honey flow, we should be in good shape. Should I dilute the syrup I got from the Hive Life conference to feed this time of the year? Hey, John Tanner, thanks for coming. Good to see you, buddy. Hey, Hi-Fi, good to see you too. Lots of guys from the conference here. Yes, dilute it this time of the year. I recommend doing that. I don't know, John Tanner, if you've got Facebook, but I will post. And if I forget, somebody remind me, but there's a chart the fellow who sold it there made that will show you how to make 1-to-1 with it, 2-to-1, 0.75 to 1 for thinner syrup like Bob Benny uses, all that stuff. But what I find to make 1-to-1 with that is you can use 14 gallons of that syrup to 10 gallons of water. So you'll have to adjust it to whatever amount that you got. All right. How many weeks after should you recheck for Varroa mites after you've put out Apivar strips? So after you've run through the whole, whatever it says on the label, I can't remember the exact date, how many days, come back 10 to 14 days later, do an oxalic acid, do an alcohol wash. Check for those mites. So Christopher Davis, no, you legally cannot use oxalic acid from Amazon. That's 99.7% oxalic acid. You need to spend 14 times the price and buy something that's 97% oxalic acid that is been blessed from the big entities. All right. Have you ever used Hive Alive, or do you know people who have? What's people's experience with it? I have never used it. I'm really skeptical. A lot of those products, Sarah, it may be the best product in the world, but there's been too many products, like the Honeybee Healthy and a lot of those things. It's not that they're killing bees or bad for bees, but they're just expensive. And basically, besides their opinion, most of the time, that's the only thing that's good about them. People test them out. Bob Benny used to use Honeybee Healthy, and he doesn't use it anymore. I used to try it, and a lot of guys did, and you just don't see any difference. And you pay a lot of money. Hive Alive might be totally different, but a lot of us are very skeptical. I think I'm getting this probably wrong. Granada, even if my hive is very strong, can I still keep feeding? You can. The bees will take it, unless the only time bees really don't take syrup is when there's a massive flow going on. And as soon as that flow stops, they're back to taking syrup again. Honeybees are always trying to go after more and more and more. That's why they make so much surplus honey when they're healthy. But yes, you can give them some feed and if they need it. But, typically like on a big colony, I want to see no less than 3 deep frames of honey or sugar syrup. In a big colony, I'm talking at least an 8-frame cluster or bigger needs to have at least 3 frames worth of honey. So, when you're looking through your colonies, if you're not seeing 3 frames worth of honey, now you might have half a frame here, and have to add them up. But there needs to be at least 3 frames of food in there. Bees, especially this time of the year, burn through a lot of resources as they're heating up that cluster and trying to keep that brood warm and expand it. A Canadian beekeeper's blog, careful about off-label oxalic acid. Some OA products are developed for other types of purposes. Additives in there might not be what we want in our hives. And that is true. And that is true. But, you know, they don't tell us necessarily what's in the 3% of the Appa box bioxyl either. We're told that it's supposed to be good. And, some people have, mentioned that it could be this, and maybe they have somewhere else. But again, it seems like price gouging when all of a sudden it's 14, 15 times the price over something else. I'm not encouraging anybody necessarily to do anything illegal because you're not supposed to. And I am not supposed to either. But at the same time, it's like I buy milk all the time. That's raw from down the road. It's illegal for the guy to sell it to me. That's bull. It gets literally bull, or maybe cow would be more appropriate. So used to they were importing milk from Mexico, but that's okay because it goes to the right entity. But I can't support my local farmer who produces cows that I actually can see how they're being treated. Stupid. So again, I'm there needs to be regulatory systems, but it's out of control, and the monopolies in beekeeping are ridiculous. I'm going to stop talking on this, and we're going to get some more fun stuff. I'm not using. Let's see. Can you combine? I don't recommend using any treatments, crossing them over at the same time. There's been no good research on that, so I wouldn't use oxalic acid and Apivar strips at the same time. But if the Apivar didn't do its job, and you come back a week or two later, hit them with the oxalic acid. Again, we don't have good literature. We don't have a lot of good information from the powers that be on actually how to keep our bees alive with these products. They tell us they'll work, and then we use them, and they don't work the way that a lot of times they tell us, or they don't give us context. It's frustrating, and that is why most professional beekeepers use off-label stuff. It's not legal, but it works better, and I don't recommend it, and I don't do it myself. But just because something has been blessed by the government does not mean it's going to work. Actually, if we do go by history, it's statistically it's going to suck and be very expensive. Oh, I get ticked off quite often, Ian. Actually, especially when Laurel's not home. I had to fix my own food today, so that's a lot of it. I'm a little hangry, but okay. Also, I had some scientists get on my Apame video today and tell me how I'm teaching people to buy Apame hives and that it's going to kill all of their colonies because bees will abscond out of those plastic hives every time. And he says that he had one and that it happened to him one time. And he worked at a lab and he was a scientist. So automatically he knows stuff. What a moron. Okay. All right. Laurel's not here to smack me over the head and shut me up. Um, I know Laurel is. See, John Hatch knows what's going on here. Yeah, I'm on my third season with Appa Maze. This winter had 10 out of 11 survive. What do you think of the Saskatraz honeybee, and how far should you keep your different type of bee? Also, what do you think about the Appa May queen hive? I haven't even looked at the Appa May queen hive until yesterday, Joshua. So I don't know anything about it really that much. I think that's interesting. I think it's definitely for people who are a little familiar with raising queens and getting those drawn out. But as far as the Saskatraz, I know several people who love them. The ones that I purchased, I don't think were mated very well, which is pretty typical of mass produced queens, in my opinion. So I really don't want to chalk that up to Saskatraz genetics being poor. I think it was more the quality control. Let's see. All right. Yeah, not myself. Oski Powers came and I really like it when you're mad. Oh boy. Let's see. But as far as genetics go, the main thing Yeah, exactly. The Earth is flat, Claude. You're right. The main thing that I told that scientist, whoever he is, and for all I know, he's living in his grandma's basement, right? And he got fired, or I have no idea. Um, anyways, bees can live in so many different things if they're healthy. And as far as the Saskatraz genetics, and the whole reason I have different styles of hives, the whole reason I try to do a broad genre of stuff. Ian and Bob, they've got these massive businesses. I don't. I run 300 hives, and I don't plan on getting bigger anytime soon. I actually might gear back about 50 colonies so I have more time to do like the experimental yard and stuff like that and find more information that I think will be important to me and the people that watch my videos. And if there's one thing that I've tried to do is show that you can keep bees in multiple different things in different sized colonies. Healthy bees do well. They really do. Sure, there are variables there in some extreme areas, but you can keep bees in a lot of different things. The equipment is a very minute part of success with bees, in my opinion. I have holy hives that go through winter that literally have holes, that big in them. Some of my best colonies. It's my theory that if I put bees in junk equipment, that they're going to be my strongest hives because it always seems when I have a hive that's starting to rot, needs replaced, or a bottom board or whatever that needs to be replaced, the colony is always ripped. So my theory is if I keep junky equipment, I'm going to have more ripped hives because I never seem to have I never have junky equipment on a dead out. It seems like I don't know. Reverse psychology beekeeping? Can that be a thing? Let's see here. Okay. I'm not going to repeat that. What is a good way to keep moisture out of the hives? Ralph, I am not an expert when it comes to moisture and keeping it out of the hives, other than the fact that I like to keep strong, healthy colonies. I ran over 100 colonies this year with Ian's foamy / what we call reflectix down here. 100 colonies, no upper ventilation. Worked great. Some of them died, though. Some of them had moisture in them, and almost all the ones that had a lot of moisture were the dead ones. I don't think it has anything to do with them not having an upper entrance. I think it has everything to do with how weak the clusters were going into winter. And I had some that had insulated foam boards. I had 2 polystyrene hives, 2 Appa hives. They all survived. I also had hundreds of wooden hives that had just a migratory cover with nothing between the lid and the box that survived. And some of them are just so big, they're already starting to build swarm cells. If the bees go into winter healthy, I feel like in my area, they're going to come out healthy as long as they're not getting rained on. I do think there's advantages, though, to having an insulated lid. I'm really considering getting insulated foam boards for my lids. If I do anything, it'll probably be that. Oh man, yeah, tomorrow's daylight saving time. No, I don't have the Laurel to smack me. And seriously, when she watches this video, I'm in big trouble. Yeah, bees don't rob pollen or bee bread. And honestly, even if you stick it in another one, they a lot of times they'll just chuck it out. Let's see. I love this rabbit hole episode of Kamon Life. I'm sorry, I don't know what's with me today. This is not how I planned this going, but at the same time, it is frustrating, and I have bad days too. All right, so John says this room sucks and all that stuff, so we're gonna remove him since Laurel can't do it for me, and now he doesn't have to worry about this room anymore. All right. It's one of those days. All right, I'm going to get to normal questions. I use the pink board under all of my covers. Well, I have those blue ones that have an R rating of 5, and the bees really like them. I put it on some of my Italian colonies that eat a lot, and I was giving them 1-to-1 sugar syrup the 7th or 8th of February. Now, granted, it was like 50 something degrees that day, but then we had that really cold spell that came down, went through all the way through here in Texas. And I put 1-to-1 in there, and it didn't kill those bees. They're massive. Has it? Let's see. Has anyone ever set a meat thermometer? Where did everything skip to? So, by the way, I am going to be in. Let's see. Oh, I lost the name of the club. The TBA. I'm going to be at the TBA this year, the Tennessee Beekeepers Association. You can go there if you're not able to come to our conference January 7th and 8th. And hopefully, if I don't tick Ian off too much, he will be there January 7th and 8th. And that'll be a fun conference. Is it true Varroa reproduce better if they are infected with deformed wing virus? Ooh, I can't remember that one for sure, Thomas Stone. I think I remember hearing something like that, though, from Dr. Humberto Boncristiani. And he's got the Inside the Hive TV. And so I cannot remember, but I do know that deformed wing virus, a certain strain of it, and the Varroa might really do a combo punch on the honeybee. Is there anything normal about a beekeeper? I should hope not. US beekeepers are all crazy. And speaking of which, so one of the guys that is gaining a lot of popularity here in the United States is he lives here now. I wonder why he lives here if us US beekeepers suck so much. But he talks about how U.S. beekeeping is so bad. He does lay-ins hives, and if he loses bees, he just catches swarms from nature and just swipes them. And he's promoting that. I don't know. That kind of gets me a little bit. Is that beekeeping? If you're constantly having to catch swarms out of trees all the time, are you keeping your bees, or are you just kind of like on swarm welfare, or what is that? I don't know what kind of beekeeping that is. But he says us U.S. beekeepers are stupid too. So, whatever. Would there be any benefit or detriment to mixing some pollen sub in with sugar syrup in the spring, still maintaining a syrup consistency? I think there would be some problems with that, TB, and thank you so much for the $5 donation. I really appreciate it. The only pollen sub out there that I'm aware of that it'll actually hold the pollen sub in syrup in suspension, where basically the pollen sub doesn't fall to the bottom of the syrup. And so, like if you're in a frame feeder, you're gonna have be really thick at the bottom and thin at the top. Is Mega Bee, and even with that one, you have to get the ratio right. It has to be like 2-to-1, and you have to have a certain proportion. It's extremely fine ground. Most of your pollen subs are not nearly that fine ground, and it will not work. And what you'll end up with is actually a lot of small hive beetles, if you have them in your area, getting down in there. I wouldn't recommend it. If possible, just make pollen patties and then feed sugar syrup, and you'll actually get the best of both worlds, in my opinion. After inspecting my hives today, tons of brood, but no drone brood. My hives are crazy strong. Will they swarm before drones show up? And yes, they will. Hi-fi. I don't know why it's like that. I am seeing less drones this year. It has been a little bit cool, but typically when you see a lot of drones, there's more chance of swarming. But even if you're just seeing a little bit of drones, and I think but there's a lot of bees in there there could still be a chance of swarming. I think there's definitely I don't know what's going on in there, honestly. Usually their big hives will have at least some drones. No drone brood. That's kind of interesting. But I will say I haven't seen as much drone brood this time of the year as I usually do. But my swarming, typically by this part of the year, I'm going to have a lot more swarm cells at this time. So this year, we're a little bit behind, I think, this year. just keep me up to date on that and let me know if you see anything. Patrick Sizemore. Thank you, Patrick, very much. Thoughts on how to take things to the next level beyond hobbyist? How fast can someone grow realistically? I think doubling is totally doable. And if you're really if you have the right information and you're really intense with your monitoring and your management, you can triple. Some people like to go even further than that. I think that's asking a lot of anybody. But definitely doubling and tripling is doable. And buying bees is it's really we've all got to get past the point of buying bees. I remember being in that stage where I'm buying bees all the time. If you keep your bees healthy, you should be producing excess. And once you get to that point, you can grow a lot faster than that, but you're also going to know what it takes to do that as well. I say double or triple. Double is a lot. Triple is pushing it. But if you have any more questions in regards to that, Patrick, just light me up with them. Is there a website to look at all the different bee conferences? Where can I find this information? Thanks. I'm not aware of anything like that. There may be something online. Maybe somebody here knows about it. I definitely do not. When do you treat for mites when you have a new package? I know you have to check, but I have heard not while you have a super on. So if I installed a package, I am going to treat them with oxalic acid vapor 10 days after installation. But before I treat them with oxalic acid vapor, I'm going to go in there and make sure the queen's laying. 10 days later, she shouldn't have any brood in there, because by the time she comes out of there and then starts laying, by the time that brood's capped, if you do it on day 9 or day 10, just make sure she's laying first. She should be, if she's any good at all. And then just hit them right there. Now you've cleaned your package up. All right. Where was I? Sugar Shane. I have 100,000 million ways to do it. There's a lot of ways to keep bees for sure. Appreciate all you do. Can I take a brood frame with bees and put it in a weaker colony? Yes, you can, Terry. And I am actually wanting to do a video on this very soon. I was wanting to do this the other day with Laurel, but she wasn't available. And I had my cell phone. I didn't have a tripod. But basically, I don't want to give brood to an undeserving colony. If it's sickly, if it's got a poor queen, I don't like giving them brood. They're just going to waste it unless I plan on requeening that or cleaning it up or whatever. This time of the year, I'm trying to balance my colonies out, and the only colonies that are getting brood frames as we're going through these big colonies and trying to keep them from swarming and pulling them back are the ones that have queens that have good patterns. Even if it's not, maybe she's only got 2.5 frames of brood, but you can tell she's laying good patterns. Those are the ones we reward, that show a lot of potential, that show that brilliance. I want to encourage that. Have you tried the push-in introduction cages? Successful? Yes, I think push-in introduction cages are successful. I don't use those most of the time. I just use JZBZ. But again, my queens are very fresh. I pull them out of a mating nuke, and a lot of times I try to use them the same day in splits. As I pull them out, their pheromone level is so high. They're accepted so much better that way. But push-in introduction cages do take a little bit more TLC and management, as far as, it's been more time than just popping a cage in. But they are nice, and I think they do a good job. Will your Russian hive get calmer if you split them? I seriously doubt it. Sometimes small hives are really mean. The only surefire way to get a hive to calm down typically is to requeen and from better genetics. Some Russian bees aren't so bad, but typically Russian hives are more aggressive than what I prefer. Do you treat with oxalic acid at night? You do end up typically getting more bees in the hive at that time, so it stands to reason you could be getting more kill, but that is ideal. But you can also do it during the middle of the day. Most of the mites are still going to be inside the hive, but doing it right around dusk or something like that, or early in the morning, it can work as well. But I do it whenever I can get around to it. And the main thing is I don't really do oxalic acid vapor anymore. I don't do oxalic acid vapor unless the bees are broodless. I just don't think it's worth my time to do 5 rounds in 21 days to get, um, in my what I've tested, about 75% kill. It's not worth it. Bee removal's got me a lot of bees. That's one way to do it. Put up those swarm traps. JP, the Delaware Bee Man. Howdy, JP. Oh boy. All right. Sorry, I'm having to moderate and talk at the same time, so things are a little bit. There we go. All right. There we go. Should I treat with OA before the season gets started? You may need it. Again, if there's a lot of brood in there, it's not going to do a whole lot. What's your magic number on equalizing production hives this time of the year? How many frames of brood do you leave? What do you take for swarm prevention? I really take it on a per colony basis. So, and also you've got to understand your season as well. And every year is a little bit different. We're behind on where we often are. It's been cooler. So typically, I'd say compared to usual, we're about 10 to 14 days behind minimum, probably 14 days. And so I don't want to take a bunch from the hives unless they're massive. So if I'm seeing a hive that's a plug double deep, what I'm probably going to do is take a frame of capped brood, and then I'm going to give that to a good deserving colony. I'm going to exchange that with a drawn comb, and then I'm probably going to take a shake of bees out as well to help cover that and help that colony really get a boost. You could take 2 from there. I have some bee yards that typically produce nectar the first week of April. Again, I think we're behind. We'll just have to see. Depends on what you're wanting to do. This year, I plan to do a lot of raising queens, so I don't care if my colonies get pulled back a little bit more, but I don't really have a magic number. I haven't gotten to that point yet. I'm not as fine-tuned with my operation as Ian is with his. All right. So Frank Bees asks, what's your if I can get oh, there we go. Frank Bees asks, Kamon, what's your 3 favorite books for queen rearing? So if you like history, I really do. I love GM Doolittle's Scientific Queen Rearing. I love that book. But as far as practical, it's more if you want to, I think it's educational. But if you're wanting more nuts and bolts, then Dr. Larry Connor's Queen Rearing Essentials book, or Queen Essentials, I can't remember which one it is a very good book. There's a couple other ones out there. Jay Smith's got a good one. Oh, there's a couple, but those are some good books right there. But if you're wanting nuts and bolts, probably Dr. Larry Connor is a good place to start. Let's see. Came in the polystyrene hives. Any issues in burning or melting hive bodies or bottom boards while using the ProVap? I did not let it sit there on those hives. I held it for about 30 seconds, and that wasn't a lot of fun. But I can deal with it. And so that's how I treated those colonies. I didn't let it touch them. I wouldn't leave your smoker on top of one of those polystyrene hives because it actually will cause a little bit of damage to them. The polystyrene hives did pretty good. I mean, the bees look good, but I still haven't got used to them. I really do appreciate Blue Sky Bee Supply donating those. The bees look healthy. I just don't like taking my hive tool to them and denting into the polystyrene. But my bees glued the big hive down quite a bit, and so I've had to torque on it a little more than I normally have to. Let's see. I'm in Middle Tennessee. Go Vols. Hey, go Vols. Except when they play Alabama, then I hope they don't score a point. Where's Laurel tonight? The boss left you alone. So we've got a birthday party coming up, and so Laurel's prepping for that. It's not my birthday. That Laurel, poor Laurel, she really doesn't catch a break. Her breaks are just different types of work. Do you prefer the mite strips? Okay. Which type of mite strips? The Mite Away quick strips or 8 Bavar or Hopguard strips? All right. Styrofoam beehives. Do it yourself styrofoam beehives? I've never done anything like that. Do you think timing is important for survival? Hive side by side. Why do some make it and some don't? I think it is natural brood breaks or things like that. Lee, you are thinking on the right path. That is that is what we hope to show a lot with this experimental yard. There is a lot to timing. There is a lot. So if a hive does something like that and gets a brood break, because why do some hives thrive and others do not in a bee yard? Why do varroa mites take out one and not the other? And this one hive thrive for a couple of years and then it goes kaput. What happens? There's a lot of stuff going on. We've got to learn what these mechanisms are. I don't believe in immune bees. I do believe in things that can buy more time. And the bees don't need immunity, honestly. And that's why I think it's going to be hard for us to get immune bees because they don't really have to be immune. They just have to stay ahead. And if bees are really swarmy, they can do it. I think some of the treatment-free beekeepers out there, that's what they're doing. They sell a lot of nukes to people. Like, hey, try our treatment-free bees, but they're splitting all the time. You take those down further south where you make more mites and you don't split like crazy like they do, and your bees might not make it to the wintertime. I think there's a lot of stuff going on. I think brood breaks is extremely important, and we need more data on just what brood breaks do to the mites. This oxalic acid, vapor, and dribble in the experimental yard, all of the colonies in that test group are going to go through a brood break, and I think it's just as important as the treatment itself. Yes, hi-fi, it is not talked about enough. I think, again, I'm not going to get on this whole regulatory stuff. I'm not going to do it. You know I'm ticked off. Okay, so we need to focus on figuring this stuff out ourselves. Scientists are really good about getting us data. Beekeepers need to focus on getting themselves results because that's really where they come from most of the time. So what we need is something that works consistently, not like the apivar strips where the quality control's down and you're shucking tons of bucks out of your wallet and still losing bees over it. So we're going to get down to the bottom of this if I have anything to say about it, and I think we're all going to be better for it. But I know when I do my splits, I'm getting the three most important things. This is why I think I'm having really good success with my bees the last few years. I've really focused on these three things. Can't say anything. Great queens, dead mites, and good nutrition. And when we pull our honey supers in June, we treat and we make a split. And when we make those splits, we cause miniature brood breaks that compound on top of the treatment. It's a double whammy. Instead of the varroa mites working with deformed wing virus to pound our bees into oblivion, we're using the bee's natural tendency of a brood break to shed mites through hygienic behavior. We're treating them, which kills them and also causes the bees to exhibit more hygienic behavior. And we're killing mites. And you know what we're doing also? We're making a split with a new queen. Great queens, dead mites, and good nutrition. It is a powerful method. And you cannot stay at 2 hives and expect to stay at that point. Bees are too dynamic for that. If you have 2 hives and want to stay there, you need to be willing to have 3 or 4. And if you have too many one year because you're too successful, sell them. It's easy. People want bees. Have I ever watched the Bee Movie? Only once, and it was too many times. But yeah, it was there was so many things wrong in that movie. It wasn't funny. Male bees with stingers, male bees doing work. You know, the drones just that's not how it works. But you know, it's Hollywood. If they actually get a movie accurate, we all just about die of a heart attack. Is it true that honeybees make up over 80% of the world's honeybee population or the world's bee population? I don't know. Why might a colony produce 6 medium frames of drone brood but solid worker brood in the deep? Does it make a difference that their medium was wax foundation? Did you by any chance accidentally buy drone brood foundation or something like that? Because if you have foundation, they should have a hard time making a ton of drone brood on it if it's worker cell sized. I do know they used to sell a 711 foundation, which was kind of in between drone cell size and worker cell size, and discouraged the queen from laying in it because it was such an odd size. But I don't think they sell that much anymore. I know Kelly's used to. Maybe they still do. And but maybe you put in waxed drone cell foundation, and that's why. I don't know. What's your number one must have for a swarm trap? Its location, placement, more importantly, their cavity size. Thank you, Tony, for the encouragement. I really appreciate that, especially today. So, my number one for a swarm trap is not size. It's really not low. I mean, location is important. Okay. So, I guess if I had to pick one, I would rather have them in a good location. But how do you know what a good location is until you've tried it? So I can't really control that until I've had long-term experience in that location. I do have a bunch of swarm traps out. And I found that there's some locations that are hot every year and some that are kind of and some that just never bring me any bees. And you just, after 2 years of striking out, I don't put a swarm trap there anymore unless it's just like on my parents' property or something, because I'm already going there anyways. But my number one thing, it would be to have old brood comb in there. If I could have one thing, it would be that I'd have that over lemongrass. I'd have that over a swarm commander. I would have old beehive smell. If I could have some old comb and propolis, an old worn out frame or something like that, that draws them in like nothing else. If possible, a 10 frame deep box, but that's because it's convenient for me. But that's my number one. When do you cull a week colony? Less than 1 frame, tiny queen. How do I do it? Only have one hive, so no resources. Well, maybe they can, you can try to give them a little bit of something, and then maybe they can try to take off. Maybe if they're healthy, it's possible as things get warmer, they might be able to do something. If the queen's any good and the bees are healthy, I don't know. But put out a swarm trap if possible or something. You might be able to catch some bees and do something like that. I think put your name in there with your local bee association. Maybe get a swarm collar too. Good season of swarm catching can really put you up. What do you do for European foul brood? Justin asks. We rear high quality queens, and nothing. There's no secret sauce really to it. We just eliminate the ones that show too much European foul brood in the hives. If we see a lot of that, well, we don't even let them just see if they can fix themselves. We get rid of them. It's easy for me. I raise hundreds of queens throughout the season, so I always have extras for these particular colonies, and I don't want that. Don't want it at all. And chalk brood, European foul brood, that is a one strike and you're out. And I've also purchased queens from people who have a similar policy, more aggressive than I do. And that would be Michael Palmer. One of the reasons I purchased from him is because he's very aggressive on these things. It's very important up north. I think even more so down in the south, but it's still important here. And I know he's very strict about that. So incorporating that into what I was doing, just I think really gave me a big leg up. I never have big problems with those things, but we constantly stay on top of it. Will the bees use bee bread left over from last year once fresh pollen is coming in? Maybe. Depends on what condition the bee bread's in. There's some research showing that bee bread, it does last a lot longer than fresh pollen because that doesn't last very long at all. But it loses its nutritional quality over time, and the bees might chuck it out, or it might not be very nutritious for them. Just kind of like, just when you grind wheat, it loses a lot of its nutrition because it's just not protected in that little seed. I have no idea. There's a lot of variables there, but I would, as long as it looks good, I'd throw it in there. Even if it looked a little bit moldy, I'd still chuck it in there. They'll just probably clean it out and use the comb for something else. Are you going to switch to all Carnolian hives? If so, What is the experimental yard going to be? The experimental yard is going to be Italian, actually. And I like carnies, though. I think for my personal operation, carnies make a lot of sense. We have a dearth period in summer that can be pretty intense sometimes. It's not as bad as like some places in California, but it's still, I think, our toughest part of the season. Actually, I know it is. It's way tougher than our winter here in Tennessee. A lot of people don't believe me, but that's the case. If you can keep your bees healthy through summer and into fall, you're going to go through winter pretty good. So summer, we have that dearth period, right? I don't want Italian hives that are just making brood and making brood and making so much brood and chugging through resources. Now, I do want colonies that are healthy and still strong so they can capitalize on that fall flow. But I feel like Italians are just more wasteful than carnies are. They're more sensitive to things. And especially in wintertime, Italians here are bad about having brood in December. And I need broodless colonies. It's my best opportunity the entire year to reset the Varroa mites back down to 0. Carnies are really good, especially true carnies that exhibit the carny behaviors of shrinking back more during periods of dearth or winter, which is a dearth. And in December, there won't be any brood in any of my carny hives. So it's easy for me to really get a big kill on those Varroa mites. And that is important. That's very important to me. But the experimental yard is going to be Italians. Italian bees are good. They're not that they're evil or anything. I've had some wonderful Italian colonies, but I just find that carnies suit my purposes better. Intention. I've already said that. All right. I missed something, but that happens a lot. There it is. Patrick Sizemore. When you think about the future of beekeeping/beekeepers, what do you see? My club members are starting to retire, and I don't see people my age in the 20s. Patrick, I might be a fool. A lot of people have said that even today. But I'm optimistic about the future. I'm excited. People are collaborating, and it's the right people. People like you all who are hardcore. The conference we had in January, it was full of hardcore beekeepers. And now being able to communicate better with beekeepers who are elite, like Ian Stepler, Bob Benny, guys like that, getting information from those folks, I see nothing but exciting things on the horizon. But we beekeepers have got to push the envelope. Yes, we need scientists. I wouldn't live without them. They have their roles in this, but we beekeepers also have got to innovate. We've got to push really hard, especially when it comes to Varroa. I think too many of us have waited too long for the establishment to figure things out. You know, say what you will about Randy Oliver. Some people love him, some people hate him, some people are kind of about him, but at least he's pushing things. And that's the way I look at this experimental yard. I'm excited. I know using the method that I'm using, if people can fine tune it to their areas and do like what I said earlier, brood breaks through splits, get that new queen, great queens, dead mites, and good nutrition, we can retain these young people. At our conference, there was people in their 20s, there was people in their 30s, people in their 40s. There were people older than that, but I was surprised how many young people were there. There's plenty of young people wanting to get into this. We've got to keep them into this by giving them the right information for them to be successful. In Tennessee, I don't know how many times we've released reports that beekeepers in Tennessee saw 60% losses this year, 50%, 70%. On average, and more often than not, it's north of 60% losses. Why? And it's been like that for a decade. Why are we not fixing this? I know a lot of guys in Tennessee who never see those hive losses. But do they get invited to speak at places? Very rarely, because they don't have a sexy message of you can have this special type hive, or American beekeepers are doing everything wrong, or put this special essential oil in there. No, it's roll up your sleeves, figure out what the problem is, monitor your hives, and get out there and work. Nobody likes that message, except you guys. Came to use a probiotic in the spring and fall. No, I do not use any probiotics. I feel like the bees get plenty from the pollens in spring and fall. And as long as I have a good queen in there and no Varroa mites, bees do pretty good. But yeah, Patrick, again, I'm super excited about the future. Call me a fool. I'm excited. St. Germain, are those Tennessee beekeepers reporting their hive counts? I have no idea if they are. I know that I do, and they drive me nuts asking me like every quarter how my bees are doing. I don't even I think they have more information on my bee yards than I do. All right. Thoughts on Italian Carnolian hybrid? Well, hey Kevin Jones, hope you're doing good. Talked about you earlier. Let's see. Hybrids are everywhere. We don't have any pure strains of anything. There's advantages to some hybrid vigor. However, I think when we start raising our own queens, we get to really pick what we want, whether that's a hybrid bee that's purposely hybridized or more carny traits. I've got a buddy of mine who has a lot of Russians and genetics in his, and he loves them. I personally don't think I'm going to ever go that route, but I really like the Carnolian. I laid it out for you why I like them. It's really comes down to what you want, but I think Italian Carney hybrids are going to produce a lot of honey, and if they're selected from, can be very, very gentle bees. And I really like gentle bees. Hey, John. All right. So making some of that maple syrup up there in Vermont. We're making maple syrup for my ice cream. Man, I'm telling you what, I would love to come up there and visit and also see Michael Palmer while I'm up there and get that maple syrup ice cream. That sounds just absolutely awesome. Yeah, hope those maple trees blossom good for you guys soon. I'm a first year beekeeper in Nashville, Tennessee. I am getting 2 packages of bees the 5th of April. Do I need to feed them with sugar water and pollen patties? Thank you. I'm inspired by your videos. Well, thank you, Jeffrey, for the kind words. Feed them, please. Even on them. What you want to see, like in the video I had today in that little Appa hive, you could see that nice brood pattern. You saw that ring of pollen, and then you saw that nice capped and sugar syrup above the top. You need to see that in your frames, Jeffrey. That's what a healthy frame looks like. Now, you don't want to see a nice pattern of or a pattern of brood with a bunch of nectar in between or sugar syrup. You don't want to be clogging up all in between the brood cells. But you definitely need to feed them. I remember, I think the second year I got into beekeeping, so whatever that was, and I didn't feed my bees. I was told by an internet guru, bees don't need to be fed. I don't need to do it. He also said not to paint the equipment because the wooden hives need to breathe. It's better for the bees. Boy, fun stuff on the internet. Anyways, I'm the one that decided to actually act on it. I lost almost every one of those hives because they weren't strong enough. Again, they've got to take care of that cluster, and then they got to forage and all that stuff. They need that sugar syrup to draw that comb out. Feed them. If you overfeed them, you can always stop feeding. Try not to overfeed them, and don't give them too much out of the gate. I had a guy buy some 5-frame nukes from me. I told him don't feed him too much at a time because he's telling me about his nice big tall feeders. He put 3 gallons of sugar syrup on each hive or nuke when he got home. Too much. Trickle feed them. But for a colony like that, a package, you're probably looking at real thin feed, 1-to-1, a gallon of a week. Just keep an eye out. Check on them once a week or once every 10 days if you can. It doesn't have to be long 20-minute inspections. Just check and see how they're doing. You'll learn a lot in that process. Let's see here. I know I missed some stuff. All right, Steve Chubb, thank you so much for coming on. I think this is your first time, but we really appreciate you, and thank you for the $50 donation that'll go to the experimental yard. I really appreciate that very much. And if you have a question, Steve, please leave it. Hey, Don, good to see that you made it in. Roll Tide. And Thank you for the donation. As well, I don't know how to pronounce your name, so I'm not going to try to. I'm running dedicated mating nukes and installing those queens into splits versus just giving each cell its own split throughout the year. If increases the goal, or is that splitting hairs? So running dedicated mating nukes or installing those queens into splits via just giving each cell its own split throughout the year if increasing is the goal. Yeah, I mean, the thing of it is, obviously, not all the queens are going to come back. So that's one of the reasons why I do actually both. I have designated mating colonies going, but whenever I'm making splits too with the queen cells, so I can have that nice brood break, I'll drop those cells, but I have extra queens in my back pocket in my mating nukes. So let's say I'm wanting to make 100 splits. I'll make those splits up, and I've got some videos on how I make my splits. And if I have, I can use a mated queen, but I like to use queen cells more and more these days. Drop that queen cell in those splits, and out of 100, let's say I only have 75 come back. I'll have at least 25 mated queens in hives that are ready to go. And if I need to on those splits to give them a little boost, I can even pull some bees from another hive, drop that queen there, and you're good to go. And beekeeping backup plans are good. But yeah, that's how I do it. I really appreciate your donation very, very much. All right. Mark, thank you so much for your donation as well. And if you have a question, hit me with it. Yeah, JP, the Delaware Bee Man. So the guy that put 3 gallons on top of his 2 nukes that he bought for me, he lived right down the road, was part of the nearby association. I was just starting to sell nukes on a consistent basis, and I didn't want anyone bad mouthing me. And he was one of those guys that said I didn't sell him any queens in those nukes. I shouldn't have bothered, but I went over there and checked them because he wasn't that far from me. Sure enough, I found both queens, and one was just loaded with swarm cells, and the queen, neither one had room to lay. They had he drew a couple frames of foundation out, but now there's like no brood in here at all. And literally, I've never seen such a plugged colony in my life. But it had been a little while. One of those queens may have actually been and the one that didn't have the cells, it may have actually been where it swarmed out and the new queen came back. I don't know. But you can overfeed your bees. Every tool has to be used appropriately. Is Alabama the elephant? Why do they say roll tide? Well, I cannot remember the exact story, so I hesitate to respond for fear that I may err. But actually, Paul Bearer Bryant didn't like the elephant as a mascot. But roll tide, it's just, if you've ever been hit by a wave, I love doing body surfing and other types of stuff like that. And if you ever get hit by a good wave, you will understand why they call them roll tide, because when you get hit by a wave, it feels like you're getting just plowed to the ground. And that's, of course, Alabama football. Okay. Is it okay to feed syrup at a common feeding station outside the hive, say 50 yards from the hives? Thanks. A lot of people do that open feeding. I don't really do open feeding. I prefer to hit the colonies as individuals because some need it and some don't. And it's always the strong ones that get the lion's share of it. And a lot of times the strong ones aren't the ones that need it. It's the little guys. So you can do that. There are some advantages to open feeding. In the state of Tennessee, I'm not sure that it's legal, actually. So you have to make sure what your state or province or whatever it is, and the legalities of all of that. You have to watch it. But definitely, they're concerned in Tennessee about disease exchange. It's another frustrating thing that we're dealing with in Tennessee right now. There are some positive changes happening in the state of Tennessee, though. The TBA is being shook up, and I'm excited by the direction they're looking at going. One of the things that I would like to see is if wax dipping gets hot enough to kill American foul brood spores. Has anybody heard anything about that? Because here's the thing. 99.9% of the equipment in Tennessee is completely safe to be resold. But in the state of Tennessee, I've got stacks of used equipment that's in great shape that I don't use. I can't legally sell that because it's had bees in it. Unless it has bees in it and has been checked by the state, I can't sell all that kind of stuff. But 99.9% of the equipment in this state is perfectly fine. It's putting a stranglehold on the industry of beekeeping here. But some of the powers that be in this state have no desire to see beekeepers thrive in this state. And you can definitely tell if you've been paying attention to the education and the lack of innovation in the state of Tennessee. And I know I'm going to make some people mad with that, but they're already mad at me anyway. So whatever. All right, Palmer Brothers Bee Farms, thank you so much. And Ayla Apiaries, thank you both for donating so much and hit me with questions if you have them. I appreciate you coming on. A Canadian Beekeepers blog. You surf too? Why not? Do you surf, Ian? Do you want to come on down here sometime and do some surfing? I didn't know Hawaiians did anything but ski or ice skate. That could be a lot of fun. Could you think of the video views that we could get of us surfing down on the Gulf? Oh, it'd be great. Steve Chubb, I would like to visit you guys and learn from you too. Do you offer this opportunity? Steve, we're going to try, if we can, to do some hands-on courses with our bees and show people how to make splits hands-on, queen rearing hands-on, all that stuff. But I just don't know if we're going to be able to find the time. I think we're going to be able to get a class in or two. But as far as just bringing one individual out at a time, I can't. I have no time for that. I just don't. I wish I did. Came any research that you know that compares the propolis properties found in good/bad mite hives? I have not seen anything on that. Propolis is a very powerful antioxidant, antimicrobial, antifungal. Obviously, it's not enough to deal with mites. I wish it was. And it's not a cure-all, but I think it is a cool product. And I think it's underutilized in human health and nutrition. I would like to see more people make that a more available product. But I can't say much. I haven't hardly done anything with mine either. I do find a good bit of it every now and then, like a good gob of it, and I'll take it and I'll roll it up and I'll swallow it like a pill. If you chew it and it's sticky like that, it'll be in your teeth for weeks. I've seen it happen before. All right. Hey, ECP. All right. Yeah. Thanks everyone who's given me a thumbs up and all that. It really does help my videos and all of our videos like Ian's. And when you give thumbs up and you comment and all that stuff, it helps a lot. Kamon, are you going to take the information you get from the experimental yard and talk to the Tennessee Ag Department about your findings? Great question. I have been talking to the Jackson County Mayor multiple times. I've been talking to the Corps of Engineers, Tennessee, certain people at Tennessee. And let me tell you, government is really good at just slowing everything down. It's like they just can't do anything now. And I thought about trying to get some of them involved. And if I do, this thing may not even happen. It's crazy. And then they're wanting to control it and do all kinds of stuff. And no, I'm not going to involve them. If they volunteer to help, no strings attached, I am all for it. But this I have my plans for it, and maybe it's not the best, but I definitely don't want some university hijacking it with all the bureaucracy that goes on with that kind of stuff. I do have some guys who are extremely good at Varroa mite monitoring and data gathering that will be helping me, and it will be in a form that anybody can understand. All right. Kamon, there's a paper out of New Zealand that shows hot wax dipping wouldn't wear 160. Oh, man, my thing just jumped and went all over the place. 160 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes will kill the spores. Hi-Fi. All right. Hi-Fi, I don't know if you know where that's at. If anybody can get me some research on American foul brood being eliminated by hot wax dipping, I would appreciate it so much. I'm going to try to see. It's probably hopeless, but you don't know until you try, of getting some people that will allow beekeepers to buy used equipment as long as it has been wax dipped. That won't allow us to be able to sell combs that don't have bees on them, but you could have wax dipped frames and boxes and lids and bottom boards to be sold in Tennessee. Yeah, Kamon, I'm looking for old boxes for display purposes, right? And that's the thing. If they're naive to think that these laws are actually working. I know people who are going out of state and they're just going over to Kentucky or Arkansas, or they're going to, and Alabama's the same way, but they're going just one state over and they're getting it anyways. It, it's ridiculous. And the stupid laws don't set well with the people. And they want to stop disease. I'm all for it. I think they should regulate American foul brood in a way, but they're also stifling the industry. I think they need to do it differently. I've been on the phone a lot, and I had a lot of personal talks this week with people who make life difficult, and so that's kind of why I've got this chip on my shoulder, and I apologize. Can you give away your boxes, Caleb? No, that is illegal in this state. You cannot do that. Hey, Saint Germain, I appreciate that offer. I might actually talk to you about that. Don't let me forget. Maybe we can work something out. Speed limits are laws, yes, and you have to wear a seatbelt too. And oh, now after my parents drove with a cell phone up to their ear for years and never had an issue with it, and most people didn't, and I did it for years truck driving, and stuff like that. All of a sudden, now legally we have to use a Bluetooth because we're too stupid. It's what happens is the dummies make it hard on the people who do things right anyways, and things just get hard for the good people and the smart beekeepers. There needs to be a punishment system with this. I think if you're spreading American foul brood around, you get fined hard. But 99.9% of us are being punished for the 0 point whatever percent that are doing stupid stuff. Yeah, I'm going to have data on it, John. Okay. Hey, Hi-Fi, I really appreciate you messaging that paper to me. I want to give it a look, see, and then I'm going to share it with the regulatory folks here in Tennessee. And hopefully, maybe we can get wax dipping as a method to be able to sell used equipment. That would be huge for the state of Tennessee. Yeah, the best way to kill anything is to get the government involved. It really is. What's your thought about killer bees? Well, we don't really have any killer bees in the country. We have a combination of what was killer bees that combined with European bees and made Africanized bees, which are way more aggressive actually than killer bees in Africa. Of course, you may already know this, but I don't really have any experience with Africanized bees in the raw sense. I think we've had some that are partially that way brought up here, very aggressive. As far as true killer African bees, I've never seen any of them in their pure form, and I would love to get experience that as long as I had a pretty good bee suit on. But I don't know. Brother Adam, who was one of the better bee breeders in the world, thought that there were some very desirable characteristics within killer bees, African bees, and I think just like any bee, they have merits, strengths, and weaknesses. All right. Let's. Okay, I'm missing. Kamon, very good topics. Will you be posting this live chat on Facebook or YouTube? This will be on YouTube. Should be by tomorrow morning and all that kind of stuff. And I'll have links to the guys and gals who have donated to our experimental yard. And there's so many of you that have also been a huge part. I'm going to try to have very soon a list of the people who have donated a lot. I'm just way behind on that, like the people who donated today. I need somebody to do all the data stuff for me and finish the website. We just have a hard time keeping up with everything that needs to be done, but we're making progress. We're getting there. And I will have the information of all the folks who donated, and I'm very excited about the experimental yard. I couldn't have done it by myself. I'm not even close. I mean, the thing I think is we're pretty much fully funded at this point. I haven't purchased everything quite yet, but I'm pretty sure I haven't done the math. But if we're not fully funded, we are really darn close. And I can't say thank you enough for all of you, especially those of you who have donated. But even those of you who can't and just watch our videos, give us those thumbs up and all that. I mean, it makes a difference, and I plan to make a difference with the experimental yard. I have 7 hives that I made it through the winter here in Dandridge. Awesome. I am planning on splitting at least 5 of them, maybe all of them. Should I wait until April, spring flows kicks in before I do that? It would be easier. The easiest time to make your splits is right before swarm season or during, because that's just the ideal time of nutrition. Bees want to grow. It's really an easy time to get your bees to do great things. It's so much harder to get bees to have a big cluster going through winter. The longer and longer you get past the spring flow. Um, I like to make my splits starting about here in a week or two. So my earliest ones. And this year's a little bit behind though. So, probably around the first week of April would be a good time, but just watch it. If those colonies are powerful, they may need split before. Obviously, you have to have queens to do that. Thanks everyone for the thumbs up and the excitement for the experimental yard. I'm really darn excited. I really am. Let's see here. But yeah, Jeremy, Tennessee, I made August splits and they did really good, but I have a lower percentage of them coming through the winter production size than those that I made splits out of in June or especially May. Eva Britt, came and take a deep breath. You're just human. Well, life needs to be funny. It really does. And I'm my worst enemy because I love this. I sometimes I put too much stuff on myself, and I'm my worst enemy. Um, I've actually started getting better about saying no, and that has been a big help to my health for sure, and Laurel's ability to put up with me for sure. But things are looking up. I think I'm about a year out from hiring somebody full time. And if I can get somebody that can specialize in the social, helping me with the social media, helping Laurel with it more, managing a website, we can get more things available to the people who want them, whether it's education, whether it's selling honey, whether it is shipping honey, I should say, whether it is shipping queens out. It's so hard to do it all. Yeah, Jeremy. Hey, you looking for a job? Right now we just pay in honey, but seriously, in the future, we will. Hey, Steve Chubb, thanks for coming on, man. Cayman, when are you going to start selling queens? As soon as I start making them. I don't like doing pre-orders, and I'm kind of in a spoiled position, and I'm trying not to act spoiled, but I don't have to take pre-orders these days. Used to, I had to, because nobody knew who I was. Now I don't have to worry about, oh man, I took 200 queens on a pre-order and I only got 180. Oh man, what am I going to do? I told them they'd be ready at this time. What I plan to do this year with the queens, and I will have some nukes for sale. We're going to focus more on the queens and especially focus on the experimental yard because I promised I would. So I've got to really make sure I deliver on that. Is whenever we get, whether it's 100 queens, 150 queens available, I'm just going to post it on Facebook and on YouTube. And I already have some people lined up. Especially, I favor the folks that have bigger orders, and 50 queens, 10 queens, 20 queens. I have to drive 45 minutes one way just to get to UPS. So there's a lot of efficiency that's got to happen. Hang 10 on the Harpeth. Let's see. Hey, one of the things that I want to talk about as far as nutrition, what can we do to help with that? Maybe Ian Stepler will share with us the variety of sunflower that they use up there in Canada. I really think they performed better than the ones that my dad purchased. And we just didn't look into it, but some sunflowers are almost pollenless or just don't produce any nectar or pollen at all. And some of the ones we had, you could see honeybees working them, and some of them the bees ignored entirely. So Ian, get that variety if you would. But seriously, I think what would help us most in Tennessee and in the southern states where we have dearths we can't do it all. You can't just supply an infinite amount of nutrition unless you're just throwing insane amount of money. But I think we can help. My goal this year, if I can find the time, my dad will help me, is to plant like an acre in the bee yards that I can plant something in of clover and sunflowers. And the sunflowers should do just fine. I think the clover, the combination of the two will work good. It won't be perfect, but nature isn't either. They compete. So it's going to be like crimson clover or a ladina or white Dutch clover, one of those, maybe a mixture, honestly, is probably what I'll do. And do that with some good sunflower varieties and plant those about 3 weeks to 4 weeks before the end of our nectar flow. And it's not to get surplus honey. It's actually so that when we take the supers off, they have something to work, and it'll just give them a little extension on the pollens and nectars, and just try to help the bees out. Even if we can eliminate 10 days of dearth for our bees, to me, that's huge. Makes a big difference. Oil type sunnies is what Ian says. All right. I'm going to have to look into oil type sunnies. I'm not sure if that's a variety, but oil type sunnies. No one grows that stuff down here and in Tennessee, but we don't do that kind of agriculture. I'll figure it out. Boneset in yards. It blooms here in Kentucky for most of July, and the bees work hard. It is a good carryover flower during the dearth. I've never even heard of that. Hi-fi. I'll have to look into that. Pioneer type crop variety. Okay. Okay. Well, that might be easier to narrow down then. I appreciate that, Ian, very much. Yeah, and that's great. Ian planted those, and it's not that we'll necessarily give our bees full nutrition with sunflowers because they're not the perfect pollen, but they can tolerate those hot days of summer that we have, those crazy hot days, and they can supply that little bit of nutrition. And I'll be feeding some pollen patties. Hopefully there's going to be some bee bread left over from spring as well. So between the combination of all three of those things, our bees can be really healthy, especially if we've knocked those mites back. And I really focused on that last year, minus the sunflowers and stuff. And my bees looked really good coming out of winter. I'm very happy. Kamon, do you artificially inseminate mating queens? Do artificially inseminated mated queens have a shorter lifespan? From everything that I've heard, yes. But I don't know that from personal experience, and maybe things have improved over the years. But from what I understand, inseminated queens don't last as long. But if they're able to lay 1,000 eggs a day for 4 months, and I also hear that there's certain operations that get them to last longer than others as well. From what I understand, Joe Latshaw, I believe he's in Ohio, runs a really nice insemination program up there, and some of his last a pretty long time. So I'm sure there's a lot of variables there, and I'm not very educated when it comes to AIing queens at all. Sunflower pollen is good against nosema gut infections. And that's one thing I want to do, Ian, is just see if we're having some nosema down here in Tennessee. I think a lot of us take for granted down here that it's warmer, we don't have as many issues. But I need to do some testing myself on that and just see if nosema is contributing to some of our issues. Let's see. Sweet lupin. How about buckwheat? I planted a bunch of buckwheat last year, and the bees really loved it. Thank you. You just answered my clover question. Just freed up 20 acres for the bees. Woo! Now, 20 acres, that is a lot. And someone asked up above, how many hives do I want to keep into an area? And that really depends. Some bee yards of mine are better than others. Hey, Jeffrey, thanks for that donation. I really appreciate it. Leave a comment below if you'd like to, and we'll get to that. But as far as how many hives to a yard, obviously, fewer is typically better. I think there's a sweet spot. But if you only have 5 in a yard, there's obviously going to be more available, maybe even too much available at certain times of the year. And I think during our pollen and honey flows, I know even with 50 colonies in a yard, there's too much for the bees to capitalize on during those special magical weeks during the year. However, a lot of the year is not like that. And it's really those dearth periods that impact the bees the most, especially the little colonies. more and more I'm trying when I split these hives. So, like, say I go through a honey production yard, I pull those honey supers off and I split them and treat them. All the little splits go to a new yard. I like to keep, I think it helps so much keeping those little splits off to themselves. I know that's a lot for smaller operations or hobbyists to do, but it really helps those little colonies out. Now, if you just got 2 or 3 hives, it's not as big of a deal. Excuse me, but I find, especially as many as that I have in a yard, that that's an issue. I think 30 is a nice number. 40, of course, the more hives I have to a yard, the more efficient it is for me to feed, to make splits, to treat, all of that stuff. But I think for my good locations, 40 to 45 is max. And I'm contemplating dropping back to 30 and just seeing if it helps our dearth periods out at all. I don't know. Always learning. Maybe I'll have it figured out in 30 years. Yeah, I purchased some canola. I'm going to try to actually plant a little bit on the organic variety from what was it, Johnny's? I think maybe it was Johnny's seeds. Kamon, can I reuse frames from starve outs with dead bees buried in the cells? Will a new hive clean them out? They absolutely will. It'll be a good bit of work for them, but they'll clean that out just fine. Bees are really good about cleaning out stuff like that. Hate that you lost a hive, but yes, I use a lot of dead outcomes every year. Always have some. Let's see. How do you deal with European foul brood hives in spring? I don't, Todd. It's part of our breeding program to always weed out queens that allow a lot of foul brood. And I say queens, the queens are the ones producing the genetics. And so if the queen's making worker bees that are not hygienic and good against foul brood, they don't have good tolerance to it. It's not that I don't ever see foul brood, European foul brood. I do. I see spots of it here and there, but when I'm actually seeing it really impacting the colony, especially prolonged, that's unacceptable. It's a queen issue for me. I raise a lot of queens. It's easy for me to take care of that. For beekeepers who are in their backyard and have issues with that, it's more complicated. But I don't put any treatments for European foul brood or chalk brood or anything like that. So one thing that I did many years ago when I was driving a truck, I purchased 100 queens from a big producer in Georgia, big commercial company, and I didn't have any European foul brood problems. And this was in the middle of summer. So usually if we have European foul brood problems, it was going to be in spring when it's wet and kind of cold and stuff. And it's a little stressful in the bees. And you can see it flare up for a little bit. This was dead of summer, dry as a bone. And I requeened and made splits with 100 of those. And I've never had so much European foul brood in my life. I don't know what genetics those came from. They were awful. And you know what I did to fix it? The ones that survived, which was most of them, about 60 to 70%. I requeened. I finally got the time and raised my own. How to requeen them. Anyways, spent all that money on those queens. And as soon as I changed the genetics, it cleared up. Genetics are really important. Genetics have limitations, but they can really help. Just requeen, yeah. Carter T, thank you so much for the $25 donation. I'm not sure I've seen you on here before, but then again, there's a lot of people that come on. So I apologize if you have and you've asked a question. I maybe have already answered it, but if you haven't, leave one below. Brian Reese, good evening. Sorry, late to the show. What I missed, man, you missed a lot. This is actually the most ranting I've ever done on one of these, and I've had some people get a little ticked off at me, but that's okay. Sometimes I feel like if people aren't getting a little upset at me, I'm not doing my job because it just comes with the territory. But Brian, I tell you, you're one of our sponsors, man. As much as you've donated, you're totally one of our sponsors for the experimental yard. I really appreciate you very much. I hope things are going well for you up there in New England. Let's see. Unfortunately, I have 600 acres of pollinator CRP within 2 miles of my bees, different types of flowers all summer long. Oh man, that is nice. The um the fellas down on the Corps of Engineers have let a bunch of people plant sunflowers, and that's made a difference on my bee yards that are close to those areas. And so I like to see the Corps get involved planting pollinator forage. Of course, they're doing it actually for dove. They plant them out there. It's for forage. But it's also for bringing doves in so people can shoot them. Backyard bees. Came and I grafted queens for the first time this year with lots of help from your videos. I didn't do great, but I got a viable laying queen out of it, so I'll call that a success. Well, I appreciate the kind words, but that is a success. That is a success. My first 2 rounds were complete failures as far as no queens, and my last one, I had several nice looking cells and didn't get them out in time, and I only ended up with one queen because she killed the rest of them. That was my first success. And you're just going to keep getting better. It's just one of those things. The more you do it, the better you're going to get. For too long, you might even have so many cells you're giving away or selling them to your buddies at your bee club. And we need more people doing that. In Australia here with no Varroa, how would you best prepare for Varroa? Because it's probably not if, but when they are here. And I hate that. I hope you guys never get them down there in Australia. They're awful. They're worse than everything else combined that we have to deal with bees. But you're right. It probably is an if. And whether it's 20 years from now, next year, who knows? But the best thing to prepare is to learn about Varroa mites and the biology. That's what this experimental yard we're doing for. I know you guys don't have them yet. It is my intention that by the time we're done with the experimental yard, it might take a couple of years for us to get the full picture on what's legally available and how to use it properly. That'll work for me. Obviously, everyone's going to have to tweak it for their season if they're shorter or longer. If you're shorter than me, might not even have to treat as much as I do. But if you're, down in Florida, you'll probably have to at least do another 30% on the treatments. But is my goal to figure out if these products are working like they're supposed to. And hey, maybe it's not going to be as sciencey as some of this. I use the word sciencey. I know it's not the correct term, but it may be not as scientific as a peer-reviewed research, but it doesn't have to be for me. I need something that's going to work. That's all that matters. I need something that's going to keep my bees alive and keep those mites dead. And we'll be testing a lot of stuff out. This is important to me. It impacts my livelihood if I can figure more about these mites. So I'll be trying to present better information on that. And I know there are other people around the country working on that. So just learn more about those stupid burgers, and hopefully we'll figure out more controls. Would those dead out frames also be a good choice in swarm traps? Dead out combs are fantastic bait and lures for swarm traps. Blanchard's bees. I think I got that right. I'm looking for intact dead queens for an art project if anyone has any. I am fresh out right now, but if I have a bunch, I'll let you know. Do you requeen every year? I'm starting to do that a lot more. Yes. So for beekeepers who don't want to kill queens, I think this is a great strategy. Let's say you have 5 hives. You want to be sustainable. You can't stay at 5 hives indefinitely forever. The bees are too dynamic. They're going to want to swarm. They're going to want to shrink down, all of that stuff. Venting is good for the soul, Kevin. Got me off track there. But if you don't want to kill the queens, just make your splits. Take that old queen out of your production colonies. Okay, like this is my honey production colony. These 5 hives. I need honey production from these 5. Make that split. Get those insurance colonies. Take that old queen, stick her in those nukes. If she can build those back up and turn those into powerful colonies next year, great. That way you don't have to kill a queen. But requeen those production colonies with new ones. Bob Benny has a lot of information on this, and I have found the more proactive I am about keeping young queens in my hives, the bigger the clusters come out of winter are. They're just bigger, stronger, they're better. Queens, people, that's a problem. We get a lot of people say, oh, I've got a 4-year-old queen. Well, that may happen from time to time. I've only seen one queen in 17 years of mine that has made it to 4 seasons. And she was definitely not in her 4th season what she was in her 2nd season. The only reason I kept her around is to use for grafting material. She gave me 2 good seasons. And in my area, if I can get 2 good seasons out of a queen, that's really good. Queens lay late January to November here in Tennessee. That's a lot of eggs. So, that's just the way I look at it, especially if you're further south than me. I mean, they just queens wear out. Maybe if you're up where Ian's at, your queens don't get to lay as much. Variables. Glad I like that honey pump from Poland. Hey, that is a sweet pump. I'm always about USA made products, B Lord. But let's face it, I've seen several honey pumps made in the US and I've looked at some online, and for the price, that is nicer than anything I've seen. I'm really frustrated with Data and Man Lake. They're not doing a whole lot of innovation for beekeepers. And if they're watching this, you're not paying attention. I know you're not. People aren't happy with you, Man Lake. We need more R&D. We're behind. That pump from Sweden is so awesome. It's easy to clean, easy to take apart. It's quiet. And the ones that I'm looking at from Man Lake and stuff, they're just not the same. There's no excuse for it. But hey, in the meantime, if I get another pump right now, it's going to be a Lyson. That is nice. Very well made. Hey, Jack T, thanks for coming on. Thank you for the kind words. Bigger, stronger, better. You're going to have to call your hives Papa John hives. Well, yeah, that's not politically correct either these days. Now, is it? Oh, well. Good thing I'm not PC. Are you going to try the 2-day queen rearing Kamon? Totally, Craig. Absolutely. Bob's going to be doing it as well. We're going to compare results. We're going to try a couple different things and see how it goes for both of us. I'm excited he's doing it because Bob will have insights that I definitely don't have. And so we've already been talking about it. We were talking about it, I think, 3 nights ago. And he was kind of talking to me, his concern about not having strong enough nucleus colonies to draw that cell out the rest of the way. And so we're just we're going to have to figure out what is going to work. I think there's a lot of promise to it. I'm super excited about it. B Lord half price in Poland. Oh my goodness, B Lord. Mail me. The shipping might take it back to normal price, but please ship me a Lyson pump. I'll pay for it if I can get half price. Half price in Poland. Well, Man Lake's pretty good. Man Lake. Better be in the USA companies. They got to make their money, and shipping's expensive. Yeah, I have a 4-year-old queen, and surprisingly, she is still going strong. I'll keep her just to see how long she will live. I love that. And that's a cool thing about hobby beekeeping is that you can afford to do more of that kind of stuff. I wish I'm trying to get back to that a little bit, but it's impossible with the business. I got to be proactive. But yes, I mean, that queen, hey, that's perfect grafting material right there, Shane and Lisa. If you can get some offspring off of that queen, she might be really awesome. The researching and developing ways to get cheaper materials. Zach gets the cigar or the cookie or whatever it's going to be today. That is exactly what Man Lake is doing right now. They are figuring out ways to charge more for less. It's the American way, not my America. Let's see. I think I missed some. Kamon shall now be dressed as B Lord. B Lord's a cool name. It's a cool name. It really is. But B Lord and Poland's already swiped it, so I can't use it. Besides, when somebody stands next to me at the conference and they're 15 years old and they're taller than me, B Lord is not the word that comes to mind. Sorry, I'm shaking the camera so much. But yeah. Actually, I think I've told some of you this before, but one of the conferences I did last year before everything was shut down in Kentucky, there was a young kid there, and I think he was 12 or something like that. Anyways, I was taller than he was, but he's like, "That's Kamon Reynolds, wow!" And he asked for my autograph, and he's like, "You're shorter than I thought you were, than I thought you would be. That's what you're shorter than I thought you would be." And I'm just like, "Look here, shrimp. I'm taller than you, at least for one more year. Give your elders some respect." I thought it was hilarious. It was great, but yeah, I get that a lot. The short beekeeper, the American bee lord. Walter T. Kelly is, I'm sure, rolling in his grave, but I think he's been rolling in his grave for a while. The company before Man Lake that had Kelly wasn't doing a terrible job. Also, customer service was non-existent. That's why I was buying from Man Lake back in the days, because Kelly's was so poor customer service. It's really a shame. I'm 5'6", bottom up bruise. Do not take those 2 inches away from me. They're very important. I need all the help I can get. Okay. Yeah, Walmart probably has the best sugar around right now that I'm aware of. But yeah, Walter T. Kelly. If somebody needs to start a business that can compete with these big guys. Man Lake did it. Walter T. Kelly did it back in the days. Of course, I mean, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a crazy amount of work to start a company like that. I know some people are trying, and I'm all about supporting those people. Even if the quality is the same, at least if the customer service is good, that's something. At least have somebody that cares about beekeepers. Yeah, hi-fi right now for granulated sugar. The best spot I know of is Walmart for us. We're a little bit cheaper than some of the other states, and some of the prices. I think we're in the 41-cent range. Last time I looked, it was 41 cents, I believe. Of course, I've been buying syrup, but still, um, I'll keep an eye out for some cheaper stuff. If I find, if or anybody else does, let me know, and I'll spread the word. All right, all right. Rural King. We're supposed to get a Rural King fairly local, and I'm hoping they'll have some cool stuff. A lot cheaper than Tractor Supply, but who isn't? Isn't Man Lake owned by China? I have no idea. They're owned by a company that doesn't care about beekeepers. 6 foot, 5'6", 5'6". That's my height. Grafted 50 and got 47 to take using the Mike Palmer method. Michael Palmer's queen rearing method is awesome, and I've used it, and it is great. Michael Palmer, it's got a good system. It's not the only good system, but it is a great system of queen rearing. Alberta, Canada. Yeah, and it's a shame, John, that happens. The bigger you get, the less quality becomes. It really is a shame, because it should be the bigger you are, the more you should be able to offer the customers. And what happens is, it's like Walmart, and Walter T. Kelly. Back in the day, it was very different. But the people who had the dream and made them what they were kept the quality control where it should have been. Now it's Man Lake's owned by a bunch of folks that don't know anything about bees or chickens for that matter, but they think they do. All right. When will I have queens? So I'm going to start grafting here in just about, well, the end of the month. We're behind this year, so I'm not going to push it. Some years I can get it in the third week of March, but I won't have queens till late April sometime. And then whenever I get around to it and have them, I'll just let people know that I have queens for sale, and they'll move. What are the pros and cons of 4 frames versus 5-frame nukes? Okay, this is a great question. I just had someone last time ask me the difference between a 5-frame and a 6-frame nuke like Ian uses. And it really doesn't. It's personal preference. So some people use the 4 frame nukes, like with the Michael Palmer, where you have 4 here and 4 here, and you got them split, put together over a deep, and that works really good. So that makes a lot of sense. But for people who don't want that system like Michael Palmer uses, then 4s are kind of small. That's the thing. It's the smaller they are, the faster the bees grow out of them. If you're wanting to go to a different size, I guess you could go 444 all the way up, but then that's going to be a really tall hive. It's a matter of personal preference. A lot of different things can work. You just got to manage. I prefer, honestly, the bigger the better. I love 10 frame hives. Healthy bees rock 10 frame boxes just great. These people on YouTube that say 10 frame boxes are bad for bees obviously haven't been to my bee yards and haven't seen Ian's bees either. Hey, Laurel, you're back. Yay. You're not, if you rewatch this video, please, oh, you've been watching? Oh, oh, okay. I'm sorry. Anyways, it really is personal preference on equipment. Healthy bees thrive in so many different things. Yeah, I'm busted, guys. Hey, Greg Burns, how's it going? So, Greg, you kind of hurt my feelings the other day. It really hurt. You talked about doing a podcast with me, and I said yes. And then what do? You drive past my place in Tennessee and go to Bob Benny. I feel like you're playing favorites here just because Bob's a lot better at bees than I am. It just still kind of hits me right here. Just messing with you, man. Hope I'm sure you had a blast, so I don't feel sorry for you at all in any form or fashion. How can you tell when the dearth starts? Well, typically, it's just for me, it's pretty easy. The bees aren't flying out of the hives in like a regular traffic type fashion, going in and out, in and out. You see a lot more bearding on the hives. Usually, when you see these big pictures of big beards, it's because they've got nothing to do. They're just hanging out. They're just getting those bodies out of the hive to keep them cool. But if they had plenty of work to do out in the field, there wouldn't be so much bearding going on during the middle of the day. When bees are bringing in a lot of nectar, they fly a lot slower. If you kind of pay attention over time, you'll notice it. When those bees are full of nectar, they're flying in, coming in nice and slow. And it's really nice to see, especially if you had like the sun behind them. You can almost see like the bees are like translucent a little bit. You can like see almost through them. And it's really just something you pick up over time. But also, you'll see robbing going on. That's for sure if the dearth's going. Is there any place where you can buy drawn comb? You can buy drawn comb from beekeepers if it's legal in your area. It can be sometimes hard to find those beekeepers, but that's the best way to do it if you legally can do so. Kamon, 10 frame boxes are bad for my old worn out back. And yes, they absolutely are. Thankfully, bees do really good in all medium hives. I was talking with a Zoom meeting during a Zoom meeting to a club out in Virginia or West Virginia, I think. One of those Virginias. Anyways, if you're on here, I apologize for not remembering. But I was talking to their club members, and they have really encouraged and seem to have a lot of beekeepers who are doing nothing but 10 frame mediums. I think that's great. The con to that is that you have more frames to go through, and you have to buy more frames and foundation, which is a little bit more expensive. But the nice thing is they're a lot lighter. It's all the same size. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. There's even some commercial operations that do that. Not a whole lot, but there are a few. So definitely tailor your equipment to your needs. Equipment really is more for the needs of the beekeeper. Healthy bees do good in a lot of different things. If you're in an extremely cold area, you might have to rethink this a little bit more and tailor it to an insulated cover for your box. I think that goes a long ways. So obviously there's variables here, but by and large, there's no special equipment that's going to save your bees if they're not healthy. Uh-oh, somebody's messaging me. Yep. Let's see. Yeah, Better Bee Comb. Frederick Dunn has some videos, and so does Dansky's Bees on YouTube of the Better Comb. That is a synthetic beeswax. It's definitely not beeswax, but if it's wired in, it can help give you that space. I think it would be nice for brood comb. It can be pretty pricey, though. And I'm going to be trying out some permacomb this year. I've got enough to do 2 medium honey supers, I think I'm going to coat mine with beeswax to encourage them. The main thing with that permacomb is it's skinny, right? And it's got to be because they need to draw it out just a little bit, and then you can cut that wax off so you can open it up. Because if they build those, they put a cap right on the edge of that plastic, you can't uncap it. So I'm going to put just a really thin layer of wax on top of that permacomb. I think it'll help them draw that out a lot more. Some people say it's not necessary. Maybe I'll try some with and some without. Does anyone have any permacomb experience in this little chat group we got going? Yeah, it is black eye time, Kamon. Mama's home and you're in big trouble. I stay in big trouble. I mean, let's just be real. It keeps my life exciting. And I'm actually going to mediums for all my honey supers, everyone. I was doing all deeps. I've pulled a lot of stuff out of storage. And again, it's frustrating because I can't sell any used equipment. So I had literally, and my dad's just barn full of mediums and some shallows and all kinds of frames and for them and stuff like that. I've been sitting there literally for well over a decade, 12, 13, 14 years, some of this stuff. I'm wax dipping it right now. It was painted. I'm wax dipping it and going to be using it this year. And of course, I've purchased mediums as well. I just got some delivered and got a bunch of new frames and foundations. So I'm looking forward to going mediums on my honey supers. It'll be good for my family. We're not going to be going all crazy commercial. We don't have the list right now to justify going all deeps. Hey, Blanchard's Bees, good night if you're still here. Lost my hive in the winter. Will the bees still use the pollen in the frames? If it's in good shape, they may. If not, they may just chuck it out. Bob, I don't know. It depends on the condition of it. It won't hurt to throw it in, though. Just throw it in there. Caleb Holland, are mites worse than small hive beetle? The comparison between mites and small hive beetle is the difference between a nuclear warhead and a grenade. Mites are way worse than small hive beetles. Live on my birthday. All right. Happy birthday, Jed. Get with Richard Noel on permacomb. You know, I haven't talked to Richard Noel in a couple of weeks. I need to ask him about that. I'd like to do a live with Richard sometime. Why can't you sell it? We sell used equipment in Michigan. Legally, you cannot sell used equipment in Tennessee. It is against the law to sell used equipment. The only way you can sell used equipment is if there's live bees in there that can be inspected, and then you can sell it. But if you have tons of good honey supers that have never been contaminated by anything, might be 1 year old, perfect condition, you cannot sell it. Yeah, Yasmin's right. We do love each other a lot, and she is a very nice and fine person. Super awesome, super amazing. None of this would be possible without Laurel. She's like the best. Hey, Kamon, just visited a bunch of commercial outfits who like you dip their boxes. Where can a fella find bulk paraffin? I think I'm sold. Well, took you long enough, Greg. I'm just messing with you. No, it's awesome. I love wax dipping boxes. I actually have been wax dipping boxes all day today because it was raining. I was wax dipping those mediums I pulled out of storage and wax dipped all of those. So I get mine from azteccandlemaking.com. And you can see they have paraffin and microcrystalline 50/50. It's probably not the cheapest out there, but it is very high quality. I have not searched around for cheaper stuff. Cheaper wax can give you some issues. And I know this stuff works. It's pretty local to me. I can even drive out there and get it if I want to. My boxes dry really good, and you can't even get the wax to scrape onto your fingernails. It just gets up into that wood, and it looks really beautiful. I love it. I had 5 Appa hives, only lost one over winter, and only had 2 frames of bees. Other hives had 6 frames of bees and more. Appa hives work great in winter, FYI. You know, they really do, but not to some scientists. That was telling me today that I was going to be telling people to kill their bees, showing them on a YouTube video to keep that you can keep bees in Appa hives. It's just crazy. The person's off their rocker about 5 miles. Not saying everybody needs to get an Appa hive today. You can do it. Hey, Laura Bees. All right. So I've seen several pictures of you making your vaporizers. You about caught up yet? I know you've been shelling them out, but the orders keep coming in too. It's a great thing. Let's see here. What are your thoughts on horizontal hives? I think they're awesome. I think they're underutilized. I think it's a great combination of the removable frame with a hive setup that is not where you have to pull boxes off one at a time. Is it the perfect system for professionals? Not really. But can you use it for a small business? I think you can. I think you could have a couple hundred of those, honestly, and just sell honey and nukes out of them. You can make nukes out of horizontal hives. I think they're underused in the US. They're not perfect, but I think they're good. And I'm excited to start mine here in just a couple weeks. I'm going to load it up with a really strong colony, and we're going to see if we can make honey in that horizontal hive this year. But yeah, I think horizontal hives are great. Can you give your equipment away and ask for a donation? No, I cannot. And let me tell you, right now, I'm under a lot of scrutiny from people in this state and other places because with the YouTube channel and some of the stuff that I say, which is my own fault, I have a lot of eyes on me, and I have to be really careful what I do. When you're wax dipping your equipment, can you use old beeswax mixed with the paraffin wax? You can't. The reason for that is beeswax has too low of a melting point, and on hot, sunny days, it'll leach out of the boxes, and it won't take much to do it. The stuff that I'm using, I think between the microcrystalline and the paraffin, I have an average melting point of 160 something degrees. If I remember right, 160 something. So that's way higher than beeswax. That's a problem with cheaper wax and lower melting point wax is it can be gummy on the outside of my boxes. My boxes are dry, but it still protects them from water. Let's see here. Sounds good, Laura Bees. Glad to hear. Is someone making vapes like John Oliver was, Bob? So Laura Bees actually makes them. They're more expensive than the John Oliver model, but they're way less money than the ProVap 110, and they're similar to John's. They use the same type of caps, but they're built heavier. So you can see a video that I did online. Bruce did a video on those, and Laura Bees also has videos on their vaporizer, so you can see kind of what they have to offer. Do you wax the parts prior to assembly, or is this overkill? John Topkins, I just I assemble the boxes and I throw them in assembled. That way, any nail hole, staple hole, screw hole, any imperfection in the wood is going to have that wax soak into it. The perfect seal. See, there's people here that have some horizontal hives. There you go, sucking up, trying to lessen the punishment. I keep trying. I know that I'm not, and it's not going to help. Laurel's too nice, honestly. She probably is. Let me get to a thing or two real quick. So I said this at the beginning of the video. Let's say it again now, because I mean, I appreciate these people so much, and I appreciate several of you: Brian Reese, Don Bearden, Kenneth Dutton, and there's several more of you. I'm going to go back to the records and write all this stuff down. But I want to thank Kevin Morrison at JW Apiaries, who provides nucleus colonies. He's providing 52, so we can learn more about the legal treatments out there and how to use them effectively to kill varroa mites and keep our hives thriving at peak performance, or which ones will not work. Premier Foundation, I really think a lot of their foundation from what I've been able to see, more than 5,500 cells per deep box when you're using Premier over right cell foundation, and the wax is not even close to what right cell is. I mean, it's so much thicker, and it just permeates everything around it. It smells so strongly of honey and wax. Great quality wax. We'll see how the bees draw them and use them. But if they draw them as good as I think that they're going to, I just probably will switch to Premier because it is giving my queen more room to lay, and it just looks so much better. The only thing I really want to see with Premier is how are they going to handle extraction? They're not built quite as thick as like right cell and acorn because of the way that they're made, so they can have more cells. And it's not that the cells are smaller, it's just that the walls of the cell are thinner and more natural. I'd like to thank Appa for giving us a serious discount on their portion of the experimental yard. Hillco Bee Supply for supplying the wooden frames and the wooden boxes, and Kevin at Hat Bee Acres, Kevin Jones and his wife for donating nucleus colonies so we can see how the splits. We're going to have tags on each one of these. So this one came from Hive 1 in the experimental yard. This is Nuke 1. We'll be able to keep accurate data on that so we can see how the treatments are working. And lastly, thanks to Good Job Bees in Hawaii, who produces exotic Hawaiian honey, donating as well. And thank you all so much as well. Thanks for Laura Bees for the donation, and keep making vaporizers. We need more people like Rob who are innovating products in this industry. There is plenty of demand out there. We just need people to make good products that work, and it will help everybody out. Monopolies are too often found in the industry of beekeeping. We've got to get rid of those. And Laura is vaporizers seem to be fitting the bill in replacement of John Oliver's retirement. All right. Has anyone had any experience with the Hillco extractors? They look nice. I'm actually going to be having one to use, Troy. When he comes down here and brings the equipment to set up the experimental yard with me, he's bringing one of their extractors. I'll try it out, see how it works. Personally, I kind of like the American-made Datent ones, but it might work really good. And on a budget, it might be a fantastic extractor. I've heard some people say that they are. The boxes are made in the U.S. Kama, what do you use to hold your frame when grafting? I just get something to prop it up on. I suggest, though, for all of you who are going to be grafting for your first time, get yourself a setup that's consistent. Get on a table, get something that's going to prop it up at the same angle every time. Get a light. Spend some time in preparation. That'll really help your early success. After you've done it a while, you might just sit on the ground and hold the frame and the light just right and pluck them out and go to town. But I've been doing this for, oh goodness, I've been grafting 13, 14 years now, I guess. Goodness. So, I mean, practice makes better. But yeah, get your setup good. They have some kits out there you can buy that'll hold it for you, but you can make stuff for yourself that'll work. But that can really help you out on your first grafts, getting that position just right. Laura Bees, I'm getting one soon also. All right, all right. Why does the United States not allow import of Asian honeybees? Well, for multiple reasons. We don't want any more pathogens and problems that could be brought with them. Asian honeybees don't do a very good job for pollination. They don't produce near as much honey. They're very different in a lot of ways. And you know, they're not the same thing. Asian honeybees are very different from European bees. And we just don't need more things coming over as well. They've got tropolapsis mites over in parts of that world. We don't need them over here. So ever since Varroa came, things have really tightened down. When the increased cell amount accelerate Varroa buildup? Great question, Brian. There's some people that actually think that it might actually decelerate Varroa buildup, because if there's more cells, and the cells are thinner, that it actually may discourage. It causes more heat. There's a lot of opinions on this. I don't have an answer for that, and either way, I don't know. I do know that I like my queens having plenty of room to lay. Hey, Michael, thanks so much for the kind words. Hope you are doing well. Good to see you on tonight. But yeah, I should have a Hilco extractor to try out um, if I am able. So James McNally says that he makes tables for grafting. Check them out on his YouTube channel. So I did not know that. I might have to look at that and see what they look like. Do you all leave your division feeders or frame feeders in the hive all year? Absolutely. I take them out sometimes, but it's not that I feel like I need to. I leave them in the hive during the winter months, and I don't see any issues with that. If you don't want to really be in trouble, get off the internet and pay attention to the boss. Well, she's got some company, so she might actually appreciate me not contributing to that. I don't know, especially with my weird mood today. Yeah, a good lighting is so key to good grafting. If you don't have good lighting, it's hard. Yeah, hi-fi monopolies in beekeeping. Best example I know of $500 to upgrade an extractor to a motorized versus hand crank. That is that's quite the raising of prices there. We have monopolies commission in the UK. Only one though. That is funny, Trevor. I appreciate your humor. You seem to do that a lot. Hey, David Fetty, I am looking forward to this bee season myself. I'm hoping we can just have an average honey year. I mean, I'd love to have a bumper crop. Don't get me wrong, but let's just, last year was pretty poor, and we still had some good things go on, though. We sold a lot of nukes and things. But I hope that we can have a extra good honey year this year, or at least an average one. I think I'm ready. I got a lot of bees ready to make some honey this year, and a lot of people asking. I haven't run out of honey, though, or anything like that. Yeah. Let's see. Kamon already said that one. Oh, I'm scrolled up. Whoops. Received my Laura Bees oxalic acid vaporizer a week or so ago. Yeah, I like the fact that you can hold up underneath it, and it's really cool. That's nice. What's the coolest that should be outside for grafting? Well, goodness, you could do it at 50 degrees, Frank, if you're fast. Ideally, it'd be good if it was in the 70s or 80s or low 90s. But it seems like the thing that damages them the most is them drying out. So don't let them dry out. Hey, Nature's Image Farm, Greg Burns of the Contrary Beekeepers podcast. Hitting the hay, but hope to wrangle you into an in-person interview soon. Well, maybe I'll let you after choosing Bob first. I feel like I've been, just kind of shoved off to the side for somebody greater. But if it's Bob, it's okay. Bob's totally worth it. Take it easy. Have a good night. We'll talk to you later, Greg. All right. Is the chemtrails making it harder for beekeepers? I don't think so. I don't think so. If we could get rid of Varroa mites and just make them disappear, pow, no more Varroa mites. Beekeepers wouldn't be having hardly any problems in comparison to what they're having now. That's the worst. I don't know what your music tastes are, but I think some Hank Sr. is due. Yeah, I can go for some Hank Sr. I like a lot of stuff. People think I'm crazy, but I play bluegrass. I like some old country music. I even like a little bit of pop and smooth jazz, classical. Oh yeah, I like a lot of music. John, am going to start shipping honey soon. We're working on a website. We're close to getting it finished. We just have to get things automated. It's such a pain right now, the way we have things set up. We just don't have enough time to do everything. Hey, David Fetty, I like to finish them in an incubator, but it works in a hive too. But I really like the incubator. Pull them out on day 7, leave them in the incubator for 3 days, and then put into the mating nukes on day 10. Do you recommend insulated boxes for summer? Most of my hives are not insulated at all, Caleb. So you can keep bees healthy in wooden boxes here in Tennessee. I did notice on my polystyrene and my Appa hives, though, they did not beard hardly at all compared to my wooden hives with solid bottom boards. That probably is less stress for the bees. But, It's one of those things, costs. I think what's worth it to somebody isn't worth it to other people. Any comment on dry feeding as far as like dry sugar or dry pollen? Dry feeding helps in a pinch, but it's not near as good as liquid feeding. When you're feeding bees 1-to-1 or something like that, it is helping clear out the bees' guts. They don't have to work very hard for it. They have to, hydrate dry sugar, and it works in a pinch. I mean, or if you're just wanting insurance, it'll work. The bees will eat it, but it doesn't offer the same benefits as liquid feeding. Of course, you can't liquid feed in December here, or you shouldn't. Probably. I mean, you should have done it in September. Do soybeans benefit bees? Do they give pollen or nectar? Some varieties do. More and more commercial crops are being developed and designed for wind pollination. They don't want them to need to have pollinators to be successful. They want them to work with wind pollination. A lot of soybean varieties don't produce nectar or pollen. Some varieties produce a good bit, and people make honey crops. I think a lot has to do with soil fertility and especially the variety of the bean. Let's see. I thought you were a Bee Gees guy. I leave that more to the Australian guys. I've heard a couple Bee Gees songs. I can stand a couple of them. It's not that I hate them or anything. I'm just not much into disco. 80s music. Some the Eagles in the 70s, and definitely like 80s pretty good. A lot of good bands in the 70s. A lot of terrible bands in the 70s too. And there's good music and bad music. That's the way I look at it. It's just like a beekeeping. There's beekeepers that keep their bees alive, and there's beekeepers who don't. I don't care, who you are. That's just the way it works. And I used to be one of those guys that couldn't keep their bees alive. So you can change that narrative. I used to lose more bees every year, like 80, 90% on average for like several years back to back. It was brutal. Is it okay to add a bit of Bragg's apple cider vinegar to the 1-to-1 syrup? You can. Some people think it helps out. I'm not one of those people. I don't think it's necessary. If you study nectar, a lot of nectar does not come in acidic. Some nectars are very alkaline, or at least pretty pH neutral. The bees take it, and as they introduce the enzyme that they have in their honey crop, invertase, or however you pronounce that, and over the process of inverting that nectar, it acidifies it, and you get an acid product. And honey is pretty acid. There's a lot to that, but I don't worry about it. A lot of nectars are pretty neutral in pH. They're not all acidic. I don't see why we have to do that. Now, it will help keep your sugar syrup from fermenting as quick if you add enough of it. I definitely want to feed Bragg's, though, going into winter, because Bragg's has that cloudiness in it. That roughage gets in your bees' guts, and then they're going to have to take some cleansing flights to get that out of their system. So what may work really good in Alabama could be detrimental in North Dakota. How far should you set a swarm trap from your yard? I typically find that bees in the yard will not just go close by and swarm into a hive. More often than not, very, very seldom. Keep it a good ways away. And I think typically when you have bees that come in right into your yard, it's coming from a decent ways away back into it. I like to keep swarm traps a good ways away from my bee yards. If I could get them a quarter mile away, I would do it. And sometimes I do. Frank's Beast, I appreciate you reminding people to give me thumbs up. I really appreciate those. Let's see here. Oh, so you go up here, but no. Oh, okay. No, that's not how that works. Laurel could probably tell me. Hey, James McNally. Yeah, thanks for coming onto our live chat. We try to do these like twice a month or something. Last time I did one of my live chats on Natalie's channel. I think a lot of people were expecting it to be just a strictly Natalie with me live chat. I had some people actually get a little ticked off that I didn't ask her more questions. We planned it beforehand. Basically, what it was is I wanted to help boost her channel. She's a very smart, hardworking girl for her age, and I love to see that. I love to see that energy and that effort rewarded. She puts a lot of work into her videos and her bees and does a great job for her age. And so I wanted to do basically what I'm doing over here on her channel. And I appreciate you all so much for taking the effort and hopping over and helping her out, because that's what she needs right now is watch time hours in order to get her monetization up so she can have ads. And I know some people don't like them. I don't like ads either, but it's what makes people like me produce a lot of videos and keep doing stuff and more stuff. And, she needs tools and she needs encouragement. And I like to see her succeed. I can't, I hope she's doing this when she's my age and she'll be phenomenal. So that's why I was over there, but I didn't ask her a ton of questions because she's not used to this kind of stuff. She's very uncomfortable with creating conversation right now, which hey, I would have been at that age as well. But I thought she did a marvelous job when you all asked questions, or when I asked a question. She's great, and I just look forward to seeing what she does over the next several years. What size boxes do you use for honey, deep or medium? Pros and cons of each. Thanks, Kamon. So in the past, I have used deep boxes. You can use any of it, but deep boxes are heavy. And the worst part about them is not only are they heavy, they're awkward. So I suggest if you're not planning on having a commercial operation where you have a specialized lift, probably go mediums and deeps. I'm switching back over to mediums for honey supers. I'm starting to have some back issues. Nothing major, but I don't want to get to anything major. And I'm literally handling just tons of deeps of honey in the past. Laurel has to do it too. My kids are starting to help. So mediums make a lot more sense. And I had to decide with my cow and silver queen, one size frame. I had to readjust it. It's a pain to readjust it. It can be done. You can't do deeps and mediums very easily. So I just have it set on mediums, and I'm just going to start doing that from now on. But I think mediums are better for the average person. And deeps are just awkward and heavy, but they both work. And deeps are more efficient. They're cheaper for what you get out of them, but watch that back. And Brian Reese is right. Money makes the world go round. Monopolies are bad, but money does make a difference. And I appreciate so many of you who have donated. It's made all the difference. It's crazy. There's days I'm like working on this experimental yard for hours, and I'm calling the Jackson County mayor, getting his opinion on how we can do it to maybe encourage some tourism, because he's trying to bring people into town and just all kinds of stuff. And we're just communicating with him because I need a place nearby I can have people out for like hands-on stuff. So he's been very awesome. We have a great Jackson County mayor here in Jackson County. And so I've been talking. It's just weird though. I've been spending so many hours on this experimental yard, and to think that it's actually happening is blowing me away. And it's due to all of you, and thank you. Yeah. Natalie, definitely check her channel out. I just watched the live chat you had with her. I thought it was great. You looked like the cool uncle. Cool uncle. Her blooper reel was pretty funny. Oh yeah, Natalie had that funny blooper reel, and I appreciate that about her. It takes a lot of guts to put out videos like that. You never know what people are going to say, and I thought it was hilarious that some of the bloopers that she had is some of the type of stuff that I do all the time. So that was funny. I also thought it was funny that she's like Kamon's like 2-to-1, and it's great. She's such a young and tiny girl. I guess to her, I look like I've got some muscle, but I'm really not that big of a dude at all. It was hilarious. What thymol treatments do you recommend? Appa thymol product. Of the thymol products, that's my favorite. That's one of the tests that we're going to be doing in the experimental yard. Oxalic, not alcohol wash beforehand. Then we're going to do Appa treatment, and then we're going to come back after all the treatments are done. We'll do alcohol washes on those colonies again, so we can get accurate data on how effective it was. Let's see. If you're in Michigan, I will give you a good deal on this overwintered swarm. Yeah, well, I'm not going to be in Michigan, unfortunately. I think I might be in Iowa, and I'm going to be in a couple places in Tennessee and a couple other states. It's nice to be getting some calls from beekeepers associations that are in other states that are wanting to do bee classes live again. That's going to be fun. Can we donate by check to your PO box? Yes, you totally can. You can also ask me questions via that as well, and I'll try to incorporate them into my live chats. I don't get many of those, but I like to do those type of questions from the PO box, which is PO Box 332. I'm going to type it down below. Actually, let's see, PO Box Gainsboro, Tennessee 38562. Yep. And that's where you can send me questions and all kinds of stuff. How did you talk to the airport into taking the experimental yard? Great topic, plain and simple. I was wanting to bring that up. So we're not doing it at the airport as of right now. The mayor's making a phone call for me. It looks like we were going to do it, and the Corps of Engineers is pulling out all the red tape. This is what they said. They're like, well, 52 seems like a lot. So why don't you just do like 13 here and then have it spread out somewhere else? Because I think that'll be better. I'm like, do you realize how much extra work that is for me? Well, we know, but we feel like we could commit to 13. They're like, well, what about 26? You can do 26 here and do 26 somewhere else. I'm like, so I'm going to have to pack up and drive. You know how hard that's going to be? You've got literally like one of the smallest airports in the state. The guy's cutting hay off of it around the airfield, and it's not used for anything else. I'm taking up a section that's not even used for the hay. I'm going to mow it. It's bees. It's good for the environment, man. What's the big deal? Well, 52 just seems like too much. Love the bureaucracy. So we might not have it there. I'm having to work really hard on finding a good spot. I don't want to put them in a poor location. But yeah, so far the airport people and the mayor was all for it. It's the Corps of Engineers that I'm having to deal with now, who Jackson County leases the land for the airport for. Love it. What kind of lifter can anyone recommend for moving my hives around? Working to have 100 plus by the end of the year. This is a comment from Dave Smith. So I actually am working on a video right now that I'm showing my lifter that I purchased from Canada. It's in the Bee Breeding Center lifter. I've had it for, well, since December. I just haven't done a video on it yet, but I haven't had a good reason to use it. And I've just been so busy, I haven't been able to do any extra stuff. But yeah, I think so far the lift is working really good. I think for small scale, it is a fantastic lift from what I can tell so far. But give me a year to try it out and see how well it works for me. Do you use Honeybee Healthy in your feeding syrup? I used to, just for a little bit. Bob Benny used to use. A lot of people used to use it. There's not really a whole lot of advantages to using it. Bees don't necessarily prefer the syrup. There's actually been some tests done by Frederick Dunn and other people as well that bees actually would prefer the sugar syrup without the Honeybee Healthy in it. If you open feed it, they prefer the other stuff, and that's really no surprise. I don't think it's that healthy for them. For the price, is it bad for them? Probably not. Might even have a couple little benefits, but for the money, I'm not spending my money on that. That's the way I look at it. The best thing about Honeybee Healthy and products like that is it keeps your syrup from fermenting as quick. That's the one thing we do know. How does the time change affect the bees? Oh, they hate it just like we humans do. It's going to be awful. The bees are they're going to whine, and they'll probably sting me a bunch tomorrow. Wayne Watson, Cedar Branch Hives. Do you treat with anything for the viruses that mites leave? Ooh, no, I really don't. I try not to ever get to the point of that where the viruses have really taken hold. Oh, beekeeping like a girl is on. Thanks, 2-1. All right. Well, hope you're doing good, 1-1. That's our new nicknames for each other. But yeah, thanks for coming on. Keep up with the videos. But so I don't have anything that I treat for viruses except killing the mites before they get too much into the bees. There has been some research done on essential oils and mushrooms type stuff for viruses, but we need more information. We need, there's no product that I know of right now that's like, if you use this, it's going to reduce viruses in your hive for sure. And usually at the point where you have those virus problems, it's kind of hard to fix the colony anyways. Yeah, John Hatch, I feel the same way about that. People that work hard, sometimes they deserve a little bit of a leg up, and that's why I like Natalie's video. She can tell she's working really hard. It takes a lot of guts to put yourself out there too on YouTube, because then you get most people are awesome. I mean, most 99.9% of you all are just great people. I bet if I came to your houses or we met at a conference or something like that, we just have a great old time cutting up talking about bees. But then there's some people that just seem to they must be really miserable people that just want to take the time out of their day to try to make Natalie or myself or Ian or even there was a guy shooting down Bob Benny the other day. I'm like, Bob is like the nicest person you'd ever like to meet, and he's probably one of the most educated beekeepers in the country. And you're taking pot shots at Bob Benny. What kind of scum are you? uh, anyways. All right. So 4.5 hours north of me in Kentucky. Can you discuss when you aim for peak population in your hives? I want peak population by the first week of April. Every year is a little bit different. We're behind this year because it's a little bit cooler. So I can probably wait just slightly longer, but it's always better to have them a little too strong beforehand than not. You can always pull little bees out if you need to, shake some bees out, whatever it takes. I want peak population by April 1st. And on a normal, whatever normal really is, I see the first nectar flows in my honey production yards in April 1st. And I think a lot of beekeepers miss out on the first couple weeks because their bees aren't strong enough. And if I can get an average year, just an average one, in a yard like that, and my bees are ready, I can produce over 100 pounds per colony in those yards if they're where they should be. And they have drawn combs. That's another thing. I've got drawn honey supers. Now, I always do like to get them to draw combs out. So let's say this year I'm using mediums. So I'm going to reduce them down to a single brood chamber. So I'm going to have 10 frames. I'm going to try to have 10 frames in all of my single brood to give the queen more room to lay. Have that excluder on. And then I am going to have my, probably about 5 or 6 mediums at least on each one. And one of those is going to be foundations. So I want to get at least one foundation box drawn each year. And eventually we'll have too much and we'll cycle, either melt it down or we'll sell some medium nukes or something, because legally that's the only way I can sell combs and stuff like that around here. But definitely want to have some headspace for those queens at that time too. You need to have some drawn combs if you have it. Stay ahead of the bees this time of the year. Always stay ahead of the bees, actually. Stay ahead of the mites too. Where are you going to be in Iowa? So it's not confirmed yet, Frank's Bees. I did receive a call from like the Iowa State beekeepers, something they put on a conference or something like that. I'll when I get more information, I'll know, and maybe it'll fall through. We haven't confirmed it 100%. Just talked to him today, but it sounds like I could be speaking there in November. We're talking about it right now, so that would be I think a lot of fun. Never been to Iowa. Let's see. Yep, Killjoys. Yeah, bee people in general are very amazing. I feel like there's a lot of people like that in the world and in this country. The problem is the news never focuses on the good. There's a lot of good that goes around. I just turn it off. I focus on my community and what we're doing and what we've decided to do. And you know what? I'm a lot happier, and I can actually make change happen here in my town. Can't affect what the peons are doing in Washington. But anyways, enough about that. How many times can you treat for Varroa mites? Oh, you can do it all the time. Um, but you need to be systematic about it. This whole oxalic acid vapor spray and pray method has yielded poor results for beekeepers. And I used to do that. But whenever I stopped, just, oh, this product says this is how you should do it and it's going to work. And I'm going to trust this product because obviously, just like every big entity, they're more concerned about helping me than helping themselves. So double checking the products and double checking my treatments has taught me a lot about what actually is happening in my hives. And again, I don't do oxalic acid vapor 5 rounds in 21 days anymore. For me, it does not seem to give me the drop that I need. Also, just 5 rounds, 21 days times 300 hives, 1,500 treatments is brutal in June. Brandon, news never focuses on my good pizza. Well, if you get me some good pizza, I will focus on it. Let me tell you. thanks for, thanks for the address of Grafting Table coming. Oh, hey, James. Hey, I appreciate that very much. Well, I'll try it out. I haven't started grafting season. I'm going to be doing a ton of grafting, so um, I'm sure it could be very helpful. And I'll try it out. And who knows, maybe even do a video on it or something. Um, I've actually looked into getting one of the grafting tables from Man Lake just because if I'm doing a class or something hands-on, which I'm thinking about doing a couple of queen rearing classes this year, it would be really handy to have something to hold it so the new people who are attempting to graft can have that consistency of being able to see down those cells. I appreciate that. Let's see here. Ooh, wow, wow. So what method of treatment do you use instead? I still use oxalic acid vapor, but I use it, Brandon, when the bees are broodless or very close to it. And I also use thiamol, Apiguard. I have used Apivar, but I'm not going to be using that anymore. And I'm looking into some other options. This experimental yard should be showing us a little bit more about what is working and or this method of using it didn't work. Let's try something else maybe next year. We're not going to figure everything out, but hopefully we can make some headway. I know I need to learn some more. Pizza, the only good thing in Chicago. Hey, I like the Cubs. My Papa Jim was a big Cubs fan. I was so thankful they won a World Series before he died. He was a Cubs fan since '41, and it was a special day when he saw the Cubs win the World Series. I was so happy for him. He never stayed awake past about 9:30 p.m., but he was up, I think, till like 11:30, 12 a.m. For the Cubs. Michael Palmer will be a speaker at the Iowa Honey Producers Conference. Oh, wow. That would be cool. So if I get to go there too, maybe I can get to meet Michael for the first time. Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome. Michael Palmer is one of my heroes. I think our personalities are quite different, though. There's nothing wrong with that. But I wonder how it'll mesh. I'm more of a goofball, and Palmer doesn't seem to be quite that goofy. But hey, people are different sometimes in person. Everyone needs to stop treating at once. That's the only way. Fiddlesticks. That doesn't work. I tried treatment free for years, grafting from the survivors. It was a total. You want to talk about blowing tens of thousands of dollars? That's a fantastic way to do it. The bees don't need to be fully immune to Varroa mites. They just need to stay ahead of them just a little bit. And that's exactly what's happening in nature. In my opinion, the bees are just swarming ahead of them. And if conditions don't get just right, they die. That's nature for you. And shoot, a lot of things go extinct. We're not wanting to keep bees in little bitty swarmy little colonies. I want to keep my bees thriving and healthy and doing well. I want to see the bees in their prime. So that's just the way I choose to do things. People can go treatment free if they want. I tried it. Didn't work for me. We'll try it maybe with this experimental yard in a couple of years. Cubbies, yeah, all right. Thanks, Kamon. I'm an Indians fan, and that was my birthday present in 16. Yeah. That was a well, maybe that was a good birthday present if you like the Cubs kind of a little bit, but probably not if you're an Indians fan. My cluster was so small and dead after that cold blast that everyone got never do a split in September. I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yeah, September is pretty late. I've had some survive in September, but they're high maintenance. They have to be a big split, and they're still pretty high risk for survival. Since you discussed much treatment stuff, can you discuss your schedule, when and what you're planning to treat with this year? So 2 rounds of oxalic acid vapor I did in December when the bees are broodless. When we pull the honey in June, we will be splitting all those big honey production colonies. If you pull all the capped brood and stick them in one, leave all the non-capped brood, the larvae and open brood in the parent colony, and you drop queen cells, you get temporary brood breaks with both of those, and you can treat those with oxalic acid vapor or dribble or some treatment. Achieve a very nice kill because all the mites are exposed, and you get new queens. And then I check with alcohol washes in August because we need to make sure that we've got everything. That's when I do my alcohol washes right before we go into the fall flow. We need those bees low on mites. We need them in good condition. And if they have low mites and they have a good population, a young queen or a good queen, they're going to capitalize on that fall stuff. And then they are going to just go through winter, just smooth sailing, baby. There is an art to beekeeping, but that is too often referred to. There is a lot of deliberate science behind this too. And no, I'm not a scientist, but there are methods that you can develop that will give you higher levels of success. It's not like it's some random thing. Yeah, I know, Laurel. You want to say hello to everybody? No. Oh no, you're not. Oh, she won't say hi to you guys. Oh, okay. I see. What about Apavard? It's too many people are seeing problems with Apavar, and I don't think it's the active ingredient. The strips aren't concentrated enough, and the Apavar is not killing mites like it's supposed to. Bob Benny is not using Apavar anymore. And you want to talk about a big drop in sales? Bob bought a lot. I spent several $1,000s on Apavar last year. It's not knocking the mites backwards. You come back and check these colonies, and the mite count is the same as when you drop the strip. So it's doing a little bit, but it's not knocking them all the way back like it's supposed to. And they brag on the effectiveness of their Apavar strips. And then you pay a lot of money, and then you don't get what you paid for. And what can you do about it? Nothing, except don't buy them again. Besides, there's a synthetic. I don't really like that about them. So it's just a good time. There's never been a better time to find natural treatments that will work and find what we can do to make them more and more effective. Do genetics play a part in resistance? Sure. Some bees are more resistant to Varroa than others. But as far as immune, no. There's nobody that has an immune bee out there. They've never been able to prove it. It's all speculation. And if there was, then why isn't it spreading around? And why aren't they selling their bees for $100, $2,000 a piece, whatever it is, and changing things dynamically? It's a very complicated problem. Yep. When should I treat my 10 hives? Now that we're going into spring, can I do it now as long as we're in 50 degrees? You can with certain products. You'll have to follow the label on them. And, I don't know. You may need to treat. You may not need to treat. Do a wash or do a sugar shake, though. Wash is definitely more accurate. Let's see. Yeah, go socks, white or red. That's a pretty big difference there. Have you tried to feed soybean meal to bees? I haven't tried that. Some people do. There are some issues with soybean meal or just soybean in general, but some people use it with success. So I just buy pre-made Ultra Bee patties. I just got one of those pallets of it. And man, I love having them pre-made. It is nice. Yeah, tracheal mites are extremely different than Varroa mites. Definitely very different. Does it matter what color your hives are? I noticed you have plain wax dip to painted. Does a bee see color? Bees don't see things the way that we do at all. So I believe like orange is like bright blue to them. They see like infrared and different things, and I don't fully understand it. I know they don't see like we do. They see a lot of texture as well. So that's why people that have beards or really hairy arms or hands typically get stung more than people who are more like baby faced and stuff like that. I'm kind of like a happy medium, I think. But they don't like dogs and stuff like that, so they see quite a bit different. I just get oops paint, but these days I hate painting. I just wax dip everything. I don't care. The main thing is you don't want to paint your hives really dark colors and overheat them. Anna Craw's channel where she used thyme oil and coconut oil for a mite treatment. First of all, I think that video's gotten a lot of views. I could be thinking the wrong one. The problem with thyme oil and coconut oil is not effective. It might kill some mites. And first of all, it's not legal either for me to use that as a mite treatment. More research needs to be done on essential oils. I'm totally for that. But right now, essential oils is way off in the distance of us understanding how to utilize it properly. My guess is it's a weak treatment. Is there a way to make it more effective? I don't know. We need to look into that stuff, but I don't see any signs of that being done. I wouldn't try it. I wouldn't risk my hive with that. If you have 5 strong to super strong hives in spring, would it be reasonable to get 7 or 8 splits from them? Yeah, if I have 5 really nice colonies and I split them early, let's say I have like the video I'm doing tomorrow. It's going to be on a hive reversal on a colony that really needed it. Nice looking colony, and another colony that also needed some maintenance immediately to prevent swarming. So tomorrow's video should be pretty cool, I think. But if you have powerful colonies like that and it's mid-March, let's say, Brian, for you, it's going to be a little bit later. But if I take those colonies and I have a mated queen and I split those in half, 1st of April, I can put a box of foundation on those, get them to draw those out. And as long as my queens are good, and especially it's easy because it's a spring flow, as long as you're not going for honey, then yeah, you could totally split all of those again. I mean, you could, if they're powerful 5 strong colonies with good queens, split them into 5 more good strong colonies. We're talking about big splits here. We're talking like deep brood box of bees, beef them up, split them again in another month and a half, 2 months. And goodness, now you're rocking 5, 10, 20 hives instead of 5. But you don't have to be that aggressive. I'm just saying a lot depends on the hive's condition. But if it's like the ones that are going to be in the video tomorrow, you can make a lot of bees with those. And they're that way because they have great queens, dead mites, and good nutrition. How soon should I put swarm boxes out? Well, here in Tennessee, your swarm boxes need to be out right now. Bees are going to start swarming any day in Tennessee. So you'll have to adjust that to North Middle Tennessee and see where you're at. Ian says bees like the color blue best. Huh? No, Ian's not on it anymore. He was on earlier. He was making fun of me, but I deserve it. Yeah, I'm going to. Well, guys, Laurel came in here. She says, I've been going for almost 3 hours. She's home. She deserves my attention. We all know she does. So I'm going to have to get off of here. All that kind of stuff. I hope you all have enjoyed this live chat. Tomorrow's video, if you're wanting to learn about when to do a hive reversal and keep those bees from swarming, or when to add a brood chamber, kind of how I do it, tomorrow's video is going to be pretty, well, it's going to answer those questions on what I do. So anyways, pretty excited about this experimental yard. We should have the first videos coming up really soon. And man, it's going to be here before you know it. Spring is right around the corner. It's awesome. Love it. God bless you all. Thanks for coming on. Thank you so much, everybody. I had a nice night. Finally chilled out towards the end. Take care.